Welcome, dear wanderers of the dark, to this channel of whispers and shadows. Tonight, we invite you to leave the safety of daylight behind, to step across thresholds barefoot or trembling, and journey into places where ghosts linger in hallways, doors creak without wind, and footsteps echo with no living footfall. In this video, we'll travel the globe through the mist, across time, past locked gates to visit 25 of the creepiest haunted houses you can actually visit if you dare. Some hide behind tour lines, others open only on nights of full moon. Some are mansions, others castles or old prisons. But all share one thing, a legacy of dread, suffering, and restless spirits. So, light a candle, lock your doors, and join me as we cross the threshold. Let us wander together into haunted corridors. The Winchester Mystery House in San Jose, California, stands as one of the most baffling and unsettling architectural marvels in American history. Built over the course of nearly 4 decades by Sarah Winchester, the widow of firearms magnate William Wirt Winchester, it has become a symbol of grief, guilt, and the supernatural. To this day, its twisting hallways, staircases to nowhere, and hidden rooms continue to puzzle and unnerve visitors who wander its endless maze. Sarah Winchester's story began in tragedy. Born Sarah Lockwood Pardee in 1839, she lived a privileged life and married into the wealthy Winchester family. Her husband, William, was the heir to the Winchester Repeating Arms Company, the manufacturer of the rifle famously known as the gun that won the West. But their fortune came at a terrible cost. Thousands of people had died by the weapon's deadly precision, and many more would fall in the years to come. Whether through warfare, crime, or frontier violence, the Winchester name became synonymous with death. In 1866, Sarah gave birth to a daughter, Annie Pardee Winchester, who died just weeks later from marasmus, a disease that causes the body to waste away. The loss devastated Sarah, and she never fully recovered from it. 15 years later, she lost her husband to tuberculosis. Alone and heartbroken, she inherited more than $20 million, a staggering fortune at the time, manned 50% ownership of the Winchester Company. But all the money in the world couldn't bring peace to her troubled soul. Desperate for guidance, Sarah is said to have turned to spiritualism, a popular movement in the late 19th century that claimed to communicate with the dead. According to legend, she consulted a medium who delivered a chilling message. The souls of those killed by Winchester rifles were angry, and they would never rest. Unless Sarah appeased them, they would come for her next. The spirit supposedly instructed her to move west and build a home that must never be completed. As long as construction continued, she would be protected from the spirits that tormented her. In 1884, Sarah Winchester purchased an unfinished 8-room farmhouse in the Santa Clara Valley and immediately began to build. For the next 38 years, construction went on day and night, without pause. Carpenters worked in shifts, 7 days a week, adding rooms, tearing down walls, and rebuilding spaces in a chaotic rhythm that defied all architectural logic. Sarah herself served as the sole designer, sketching out her ideas on scraps of paper and napkins. The result was a sprawling mansion that eventually grew to 7 stories high and contained more than 160 rooms, 10,000 windows, 2,000 doors, 47 fireplaces, 40 staircases, 13 bathrooms, and 6 kitchens. But the Winchester house was not built for comfort or practicality. It was a labyrinth designed to confuse, perhaps even trap restless spirits. Staircases lead to dead ends, doors open to sheer drops, and hallways twist and turn in disorienting patterns. Some windows are set into the floor, others look into other rooms rather than outside. The number 13 appears everywhere. 13 panes in a window, 13 steps in a staircase, 13 hooks in a closet. Even her will was divided into 13 sections. Whether by superstition or design, Sarah seemed obsessed with keeping dark forces at bay through geometry and confusion. One of the most peculiar features of the mansion is the door to nowhere, a simple door on an upper floor that opens to empty air. Step through it, and you'd fall several stories to the garden below. Another famous oddity is the staircase to nowhere, a set of steps that ascends directly into the ceiling. Some believe Sarah designed these elements to disorient ghosts, leading them away from her living quarters so they could never find her. Throughout the years, Sarah lived in near isolation within the mansion. She wore a black veil and was rarely seen by servants, communicating mostly through handwritten notes slipped under doors. Each night, she would retreat to a different bedroom, sleeping in a new room to keep the spirits guessing. At midnight, she is said to have visited the seance room, a small chamber at the heart of the mansion, accessible through one door and exited through another. There, she supposedly communed with the dead, seeking advice on how to continue construction or appease restless souls. Workers claimed that the sound of bells would echo through the house at midnight and 2 a.m., the times she began and ended her nightly rituals. In 1906, the Great San Francisco earthquake struck, devastating the region and toppling parts of the Winchester mansion. The top 3 floors collapsed, trapping Sarah inside one of her favorite rooms for several hours before she was freed. Interpreting the quake as a message from the spirits, she sealed off the damaged sections and never rebuilt them. Today, those areas remain just as they were: splintered walls, broken staircases, and doors leading to collapsed spaces, a haunting reminder of the mansion's chaotic history. When Sarah Winchester died in 1922, construction finally stopped. Carpenters simply laid down their tools and left. The house, unfinished and bizarre, became a monument to her obsession and sorrow. No one knows exactly how many rooms she intended to build, or what final form the mansion might have taken. Her estate auctioned off the furnishings, and within a few years, the property opened as a tourist attraction, a museum of mystery. Visitors to the Winchester Mystery House today often report strange phenomena. Footsteps echo when no one is there. Doors open and close by themselves. The faint sound of hammering is sometimes heard at night, as if ghostly carpenters still labor under Sarah's eternal orders. Some guests have felt cold drafts, sudden dizziness, or the feeling of being watched. In the seance room, cameras malfunction, and strange orbs of light appear in photographs. Tour guides claim to have seen the figure of a woman in black, standing in a hallway or vanishing around a corner, believed to be Sarah herself, still wandering her endless creation. Skeptics dismiss these stories as tricks of architecture and imagination, the result of a house built without logic, where uneven floors, hidden vents, and strange acoustics play with perception. But even they admit that the mansion feels different, as if it carries a pulse of its own. Every creak, every shadow, every whisper seems to suggest that something unseen lingers in its walls. The Winchester Mystery House remains one of the most visited haunted locations in America. A blend of tragedy, superstition, and genius. Whether Sarah built it to escape ghosts or her own guilt, no one can truly say. What is certain is that she created a masterpiece of madness, an ever-expanding maze that mirrors the restless mind of its creator. And as long as people walk its twisting halls, the story of Sarah Winchester and her mysterious mansion will never truly end. The Sallie House in Atchison, Kansas, is one of the most infamous haunted homes in the United States, a place where the line between folklore and terror blurs. Tucked away in a quiet neighborhood, the house appears ordinary from the outside, a modest 2-story structure with white siding and a welcoming porch. But behind its unassuming facade lies a chilling history that has drawn paranormal investigators, skeptics, and thrill-seekers from all over the world. They come in search of the truth about the spirit known as Sally, a little girl whose tragic story seems to echo through every creaking floorboard and flickering light within the house. The legend begins in the early 1900s, when the house served as both a residence and medical office for a local physician. According to local accounts, a frantic mother brought her 6-year-old daughter, Sally, to the doctor one day after the girl had fallen violently ill with severe abdominal pain. The doctor quickly diagnosed appendicitis, a condition that was often fatal at the time if untreated. With no time to waste, he decided to operate immediately. The story goes that during the operation, Sally began to scream. The doctor, realizing too late that the anesthesia had not taken effect, continued the procedure in desperation. The girl's cries filled the house, echoing off the walls, until suddenly they stopped. Sally died on the table, her face frozen in pain and fear. What followed, if the stories are to be believed, was a haunting born of anguish. The doctor was said to have been tormented by guilt, claiming to hear Sally's voice in the halls and see her apparition near the room where she had died. He told neighbors of sudden cold spots, objects moving on their own, and the sound of small footsteps pacing at night. After his death, the house changed hands many times, but no owner stayed for long. Each family reported strange occurrences that seemed to center around a mischievous, yet malevolent, childlike presence. Decades later, in the early 1990s, the Sally house gained national attention when a young couple, Tony and Deborah Pickman, moved in. They were expecting their first child and saw the home as a perfect place to start their family. But soon after settling in, they began to experience the inexplicable. Lights flickered on and off. Appliances turned themselves on in the middle of the night. Their dog would growl at empty corners, refusing to enter certain rooms. The temperature in parts of the house would drop suddenly, and Deborah noticed that pictures on the walls were being turned upside down. At first, the Pickmans thought the disturbances were harmless, perhaps the spirit of a lonely little girl trying to make herself known. Deborah even began talking to Sally, leaving out toys and candies to comfort what she believed was a child's ghost. But as weeks went by, the activity grew darker. Once, as he stood in the nursery preparing for their baby's arrival, invisible hands slashed at his body, leaving marks that burned and bled. The attacks were relentless. Tony claimed to feel an unseen force pushing or choking him, often accompanied by the scent of burning candles or the sound of a little girl's giggle. The haunting took its toll on the couple. Their relationship strained under the weight of fear and sleepless nights. Deborah called in paranormal investigators and psychics, hoping to understand what was happening. Many claimed that Sally's spirit had become attached to Tony, perhaps mistaking him for the doctor who had caused her pain. Others believed there was more than one entity in the house, something darker hiding behind the image of an innocent child. One psychic described the presence as a trickster, capable of taking on forms to manipulate the living. Whatever it was, it seemed to feed on fear. Growing stronger, the more terrified the couple became. The Pickmans eventually fled the house, unable to endure the constant attacks. When their story aired on the television show Sightings in the mid-1990s, the Sally house became a sensation. Paranormal researchers, ghost hunting teams, and curious tourists began to visit Atchison to experience the house for themselves. Many reported similar phenomena: cameras malfunctioning, batteries draining, cold drafts that came from nowhere, and toys that moved on their own. Some claimed to have recorded the voice of a little girl saying "I'm sorry," while others heard screams echoing faintly in the night. Skeptics dismissed these as coincidences, but even hardened investigators admitted that something about the Sally house felt disturbingly alive. Over the years, the legend has grown. Some say Sally's spirit remains a lost child, trapped in the home where she died, searching for comfort. Others insist that the entity inside is not a child at all, but a malevolent presence that uses the story of Sally to lure people in. Visitors have reported feelings of sudden dread, nausea, or being watched. Some have left the house with unexplained scratches or bruises. Others hear whispers calling their names in empty rooms. Electronic voice phenomena. Static-filled recordings of voices often capture words like help, pain, or get out. Local historians have tried to verify the story of Sally, but no records of a young girl by that name dying during an operation in the house have ever been found. Some researchers suggest that the story may have evolved over time, blending truth and folklore. It's possible the house absorbed the emotions and memories of those who lived their fear, guilt, and sorrow and now mirrors them back as haunting manifestations. But for those who've spent time inside, the lack of documentation does nothing to ease the feeling that something unseen watches from the shadows. Today, the Sally house stands as a landmark of the paranormal. It's open for tours, overnight stays, and ghost investigations, and those brave enough to enter often come away with their own stories. Visitors describe children's toys inexplicably moving, sudden power failures, and faint crying from the upstairs rooms. The air feels thick, heavy, and charged with emotion. Even during the day, the house carries an uneasy silence, as if holding its breath between whispers of the past. The Lizzie Borden house in Fall River, Massachusetts, stands as one of the most infamous crime scenes in American history, a quiet home that witnessed a brutal double murder, so shocking that its story has echoed through generations. Today, it serves as both a museum and a bed and breakfast, where visitors can spend the night in the very rooms where blood was spilled more than a century ago. But the house is said to hold more than just history within its walls. Many claim that the spirits of Andrew and Abby Borden, and perhaps even Lizzie herself, never truly left. The story begins on a warm summer morning, August 4, 1892. Andrew Borden, a wealthy but notoriously frugal businessman, lived with his second wife, Abby, and his two grown daughters, Lizzie and Emma. The family's home at 92 2nd Street was modest. Despite their wealth, Andrew had refused to install modern plumbing or electricity, believing such luxuries were unnecessary. Their strict and somber lifestyle contrasted sharply with Lizzie's growing resentment. At 32, unmarried and living under her father's rigid rules, she felt trapped and increasingly bitter, especially toward her stepmother, whom she believed had married for money. The day of the murders began as uneventfully as any other. The family's maid, Bridget Sullivan, known as Maggie, was cleaning the windows, despite feeling ill from food that had spoiled the night before. Andrew had gone out for his morning errands, while Abby stayed upstairs making the bed in the guest room, where Lizzie's uncle, John Morse, had spent the night. Sometime between 9 o'clock and 10:30 a.m., someone struck Abby Borden from behind with a hatchet. She fell to the floor, and the killer delivered multiple blows to her head, nearly splitting it in two. The attack was swift and savage. When Andrew returned home around 10:45 a.m., he sat on the sofa in the sitting room, unaware of the horror upstairs. Lizzie claimed to have spoken briefly with him before he lay down to rest. Minutes later, someone struck him 10 times with the same or similar weapon, crushing his skull and spilling his blood across the couch and floor. When Bridget later heard Lizzie cry out, "Maggie, come quick," the police arrived quickly. But the investigation was chaotic from the start. Officers tramped through the house, disturbing evidence, while neighbors gathered outside, whispering in disbelief. Suspicion immediately fell on Lizzie. There were no signs of forced entry, and both murders had occurred within a narrow window of time while only Lizzie and Bridget were home. When questioned, Lizzie's answers were inconsistent. She claimed not to know where her stepmother was, even though Abby's body lay just upstairs. Later, she said she had been in the barn looking for lead sinkers when her father was attacked, a claim that investigators found dubious, especially since it was an oppressively hot day and no footprints were found in the barn dust. Adding to the mystery, witnesses reported seeing Lizzie attempt to buy poison the day before the murders, allegedly to kill rats. After the crime, police found a burned dress in the stove, which Lizzie said she had destroyed because it was stained with paint. Many believed she was burning evidence. Yet, despite the suspicions, the police struggled to build a solid case. The murder weapon was never definitively identified, and no blood-stained clothing was found. Still, public opinion turned swiftly against Lizzie. Newspapers across the country covered the story, painting her as either a cold-blooded killer or a misunderstood spinster trapped in a patriarchal society. Lizzie was arrested and stood trial in 1893. The courtroom was packed, the atmosphere electric, with morbid curiosity. Her calm demeanor fascinated some and unnerved others. The prosecution argued that Lizzie had killed her father and stepmother out of anger and greed, eager to inherit the family fortune. The defense countered that there was no physical evidence linking her to the murders and no witnesses who saw her commit the crime. After 2 weeks of testimony, the jury deliberated for just 90 minutes before returning a verdict of not guilty. Lizzie was free, but her reputation was destroyed. After the trial, Lizzie and her sister Emma moved into a large home on the fashionable hill section of Fall River, which they named Maplecroft, but the shadow of the murders never lifted. Emma eventually left after a bitter falling out. and Lizzie lived out her remaining years in isolation, shunned by neighbors and haunted by gossip. She died in 1927. Still maintaining her innocence, she was buried in the Borden family plot at Oak Grove Cemetery, not far from the graves of her slain parents. The old Borden house remained in private hands for decades before being restored and opened as a museum. Visitors today can explore each room preserved as it was on that fateful day: the parlor where Andrew died, the guest room where Abby's life ended, the kitchen, the narrow staircase, and Lizzie's bedroom. The house is a time capsule of 19th century domestic life, but many believe it is also a prison for restless spirits. Guests who spend the night report strange occurrences, footsteps pacing above them when no one else is upstairs, whispering voices in empty rooms, doors that open on their own, and cold drafts that appear without explanation. Some visitors have claimed to see the apparition of a stern-looking man, believed to be Andrew, standing silently near the sofa where he was killed. Others have reported the figure of a woman in a long dress appearing briefly in mirrors or at the foot of the bed in the guest room, thought to be Abby, reliving her final moments. The sound of a woman sobbing softly has been heard from Lizzie's old bedroom, and ghost hunters often capture electronic voice phenomenal whispers that seem to respond when spoken to. One recording captured what sounded like a child's voice saying, "Someone killed Papa." Skeptics argue that the house's haunting reputation is fueled by its gruesome history and the power of suggestion. Yet even the most doubtful visitors admit there is something unnerving about standing in the same rooms where such violence occurred. The air feels heavy, as if the walls themselves remember the screams. Flashlights flicker, cameras malfunction, and some guests report feeling dizzy or overwhelmed by sadness the moment they step inside. Over the years, countless investigators have come to the Lizzie Borden house seeking answers, but none have been able to explain away every shadow, every whisper, or every chill. Whether the spirits that linger belong to Andrew and Abby or to Lizzie herself is a matter of speculation. Perhaps it is the energy of unresolved guilt and mystery that keeps the house alive, a century-old secret that refuses to rest. Today, the Lizzie Borden house stands as both a museum of crime and a monument to America's fascination with the macabre. Those who visit walk through history, tracing the steps of one of the nation's most puzzling murder cases. But as night falls and the old house creaks in the dark, one can't help but wonder if the echoes of August 1892 still linger, ghostly reminders of a crime that time has never fully solved. The Lemp Mansion in St. Louis, Missouri, is a place where wealth and despair coexist, where history whispers through dark hallways, and where tragedy has left its mark on nearly every wall. Once the grand home of one of America's most successful brewing families, the mansion now stands as a somber reminder of a dynasty destroyed by misfortune, mental illness, and death. Today, it serves as a restaurant, and one of the most haunted locations in the country. Its ghostly legacy as powerful as the empire that built it. The story of the Lemp family begins in the mid-19th century with Johann Adam Lemp, a German immigrant who arrived in St. Louis in 1838. He opened a small grocery store, selling goods and homemade beer from a recipe he had brought from Germany. His beer, stored in cool limestone caves beneath the city, quickly became popular among locals. By 1840, Lemp abandoned the grocery business and devoted himself entirely to brewing, establishing the Western Brewery, one of the earliest and most successful in the region. When Adam Lemp died in 1862, his son, William J. Lemp, took over the business and transformed it into a powerhouse. Under William's leadership, the Lemp Brewery became one of the largest in the United States. The company's success was fueled by innovation. The Lemps were among the first to install refrigeration, and they used the natural caves beneath St. Louis to keep their lager perfectly chilled year-round. The family's fortune soared, and in 1868, William built the Grand Lemp Mansion just blocks from the brewery, a massive, elegant home that symbolized both their wealth and their prominence in St. Louis society. But with great fortune came great misfortune. Beneath the surface of the family's success lay a deep sadness that would soon consume them. The first tragedy struck in 1901 when William's favorite son, Frederick Lemp, died unexpectedly at just 28 years old, possibly from heart failure related to illness. Frederick had been groomed to inherit the family empire, and his death devastated William. In the years that followed, his health and spirit declined rapidly. On the morning of February 13, 1904, overcome with grief and despair, William Lemp went into his office on the first floor of the mansion, locked the door, and took his own life with a revolver. His death marked the beginning of a long and tragic curse that would claim nearly every member of the Lemp family. After William's death, the brewery passed to his son, William Lemp, Jr., known as Billy. Though Billy continued to run the business, the golden age of the Lemp empire was fading. Competition in the brewing industry was growing, and internal family tensions began to erode their stability. Billy himself was known for his extravagant parties, short temper, and tumultuous personal life. He married Lillian Lawn, a beautiful and fashionable socialite, nicknamed the Lavender Lady for her love of the color, but their marriage soon collapsed amid scandal. Lillian filed for divorce in 1909, citing Billy's infidelity and cruelty. The public humiliation only deepened the family's troubles. When Prohibition began in 1920, the Lemp Brewery, like many others, was forced to shut down. Unable to recover from the loss of their livelihood, the Lemps sold off the brewery buildings for a fraction of their worth. The once great empire had crumbled. In 1922, with his business gone and his family name in ruins, Billy Lemp took his own life in the same mansion where his father had died years earlier. He used a revolver in the same manner and even in a similar room. Tragedy did not stop there. Billy's sister, Elsa Lemp Wright, who was known for her beauty and social status, also met a tragic end. Though she lived away from the mansion, her life was haunted by the same darkness that seemed to curse her family. In 1920, after years of marital discord and emotional instability, Elsa was found dead in her home from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. Her death shocked St. Louis and deepened the legend of the Lemp family's misfortune. The mansion remained in the family for a time, occupied by Charles Lemp, another of William Sr.'s sons. Charles was a quiet, reclusive man who rarely left the house and lived with only his dog and a few servants. Those who knew him described him as gentle but deeply troubled. On May 10, 1949, Charles, too, took his own life in the home, shooting himself in the head in his bedroom. The loyal animal was shot as requested, and both were laid to rest together. By then, the Lemp family line was nearly extinct, and the mansion that once symbolized their glory had become a monument to despair. After Charles's death, the mansion stood empty for many years, its windows dark and its halls silent. Locals began to whisper that the house was cursed. Strange lights were seen flickering at night, and passers-by claimed to hear footsteps or muffled cries from within. Some said that if you stood outside the mansion after midnight, you could see the ghostly figure of a man in old-fashioned clothes looking out from the second-floor window, the same room where William Sr. had died. In the 1970s, the mansion was restored and reopened as a restaurant, but even then, reports of paranormal activity persisted. Employees and guests alike have experienced cold spots, doors slamming on their own, and the sound of footsteps echoing down empty corridors. Some have seen full-bodied apparitions, a man in an old suit walking into a room and vanishing, or the faint outline of a woman believed to be Elsa appearing in mirrors. In the basement, which once connected to the brewery's underground caves, people have reported hearing voices and laughter as if ghostly workers still tended the beer vats below. One of the most haunted areas is said to be William Sr.'s office, where he took his life. Guests often feel sudden chills or a sense of unease when entering, and some have even claimed to see the faint silhouette of a man sitting behind the desk. The stairway to the attic also carries a sense of sadness. Legend has it that a child, rumored to be an illegitimate Lemp offspring, born with deformities, was kept hidden away there for much of his short life. Visitors claim to hear the sound of small footsteps or a child's soft crying coming from the upper floors when no one else is around. Today, the Lemp Mansion stands as one of the most haunted houses in America, a blend of elegance and sorrow. The restaurant serves fine meals in candlelit rooms, and guests can spend the night in the very chambers where members of the Lemp family once lived and died. Yet behind the laughter of diners and the hum of conversation, an unmistakable melancholy lingers. Some say the spirits of the Lemps remain trapped in their former home, forever replaying the anguish that destroyed them. And as long as the mansion stands, their story of fortune, madness, and ghosts will never fade. In the heart of New Orleans' French Quarter, amid the elegant iron balconies and cobblestone streets, stands a mansion that has come to symbolize the darkest side of the city's gilded, Pastelari house. Behind its stately facade and graceful architecture lies a story of horror and cruelty that has haunted New Orleans for nearly 2 centuries. Once the home of Madame Delphine Lalaurie, a respected socialite and hostess, the house became infamous in the 1830s when horrifying secrets were discovered within its walls. What was once a center of luxury and refinement became a place forever stained by suffering and legends. Delphine McCarty Lalaurie was born into privilege in 1787, part of a powerful Creole family that moved in the highest circles of Louisiana society. She married 3 times, each union elevating her social and financial standing. By the time she married her 3rd husband, Dr. Louis Lalaurie, she was one of the most influential women in New Orleans. Together, they moved into a grand 3-story mansion at 1140 Royal Street, a home that would later become one of the most notorious addresses in American history. From the outside, the Lalaurie mansion was the picture of elegance. It stood proudly on the corner of Royal and Governor Nichols Streets, with tall windows, ornate balconies, and gleaming chandeliers visible from the street. Delphine entertained the city's elite in lavish parties filled with music, fine food, and flowing wine. Guests described her as graceful, charming, and impeccably dressed. To the public eye, she embodied refinement and hospitality. But behind that polished image was a darkness that no one could have imagined, or perhaps one that many preferred not to see. Whispers of cruelty began circulating long before the mansion's horrors were exposed. Neighbors reported that enslaved servants in the Lalaurie household seemed fearful and malnourished. Some spoke of screams in the night, of slaves disappearing suddenly and never being seen again. On one occasion, a neighbor claimed to see Delphine chase a young servant girl with a whip across the balcony. The terrified child leaped from the roof to her death. The story spread quickly, and the incident reportedly led to an investigation by local authorities. Delphine was found guilty of illegal cruelty and forced to sell several enslaved people, but she is said to have secretly repurchased them through intermediaries, bringing them back to her mansion in secret. For a time, life at the Lalaurie house appeared to return to normal. Parties resumed, and the wealthy of New Orleans once again attended Delphine's gatherings, preferring to ignore the rumors that clung to her name. But everything changed on the morning of April 10, 1834, when a fire broke out in the mansion's kitchen. Flames quickly spread through the lower floors, sending smoke billowing into the streets. Neighbors and bystanders rushed to help, breaking down doors to free the trapped occupants. What they found would shock even the most hardened citizens of the city. Inside, rescuers discovered a scene of unspeakable horror in a locked attic room. Some were restrained in cruel positions. Others were barely alive, scarred and broken from years of abuse. Eyewitnesses described makeshift surgical instruments scattered across tables, iron collars and chains bolted to the walls, and the stench of blood and decay hanging in the air. The discovery ignited outrage throughout New Orleans. A mob gathered outside the mansion, furious at the cruelty that had been hidden behind its elegant walls. By nightfall, the crowd had grown violent, storming the house and destroying much of its interior. The Lalaurie family fled before they could be arrested. Delphine Lalaurie's exact fate remains shrouded in mystery. Some accounts suggest she escaped to Paris, living out her days in quiet exile until her death. Others believe she returned to New Orleans under an assumed name. A cracked gravestone bearing her name was reportedly found in a French cemetery, though whether it truly belonged to her is uncertain. What is certain, however, is that her mansion became synonymous with evil. After the fire, The house changed hands many times, each new owner adding layers to its legend. Some tried to restore it, but none stayed for long. Strange occurrences were reported almost immediately. Visitors claimed to hear phantom screams echoing from the attic, the rattling of chains, and ghostly weeping drifting through the hallways. Residents spoke of shadowy figures moving in the corners of rooms and the sound of footsteps pacing above them when no one was there. Some said they saw apparitions of enslaved people, their faces filled with sorrow and anger, appearing briefly before vanishing into the walls. Over the years, the Lalaurie Mansion has served many purposes: a school, a boarding house, a furniture store, and even a private residence again. But no matter who owned it, the house's reputation for being haunted remained constant. In the 19th century, it became a home for immigrant families, many of whom left after reporting terrifying encounters. Children claimed to see a woman with a whip walking through the corridors, and others spoke of a man bound in chains, moaning from the upper floors. During one period, the mansion sat empty, its windows dark and its doors locked, yet neighbors swore they could see candlelight flickering inside late at night. The legend of the Lalaurie house grew over time, blending history with ghost stories. Paranormal investigators who have entered the house describe cold spots, disembodied voices, and sudden feelings of nausea or dread. One medium claimed that the building was a vortex of pain, a place where the suffering of the past had imprinted itself into the very structure of the house. Some say the spirits trapped within are not only those of the tortured, but also Delphine herself, forever haunted by the atrocities she committed. Even modern visitors to Royal Street often stop to stare at the mansion's imposing facade, sensing something unsettling about it. Though the building has been beautifully restored, the air around it feels heavy, as if the echoes of the past still linger in the silence between its walls. Tour guides tell stories of tourists who faint or become ill while standing in front of the house, overwhelmed by an unseen energy. Others have captured strange figures in photographs, shadowy shapes that seem to watch from the windows. Today, the Lalaurie Mansion stands as one of the most famous haunted houses in America. It embodies both the beauty and horror of New Orleans, a city steeped in charm, mystery, and dark history. The mansion's elegant exterior may disguise its past, but its reputation endures as a monument to cruelty and suffering. For those who pass by at night, when the gas lamps flicker and the streets grow quiet, it's easy to imagine the faint echo of footsteps from long ago, the creak of a door in the attic, and the whisper of souls who have never truly found peace. The Villisca Axe Murder House in Villisca, Iowa, is a place where terror seems to linger in every corner, where the echoes of screams from over a century ago still haunt the walls. The house, a modest two-story structure built in 1868, became infamous in 1912 when an unimaginable tragedy struck: the brutal murder of an entire family and 2 young visitors, all bludgeoned to death with an axe while they slept. Today, the house stands as a chilling reminder of that night, drawing visitors, paranormal investigators, and thrill-seekers who seek to experience the horror firsthand. Despite more than a century of investigation, the crime remains unsolved, and the house's reputation as one of America's most haunted locations endures. The Moore family, Josiah and Sarah, along with their children Herman, Catherine, Boyd, and Paul, were respected members of the small town of Villisca. Josiah Moore was a successful businessman, known for his hard work and involvement in the community, while Sarah Moore devoted herself to raising their children in a close-knit, devout household. On the evening of June 9, 1912, the family hosted 2 visiting children, Lena and Ina Stillinger, whose parents lived nearby. After an evening of music, games, and quiet conversation, the children went to bed in the Moore home, unaware that death was about to descend upon them. That night, an unknown assailant entered the home. The perpetrator moved silently through the rooms, taking advantage of the peacefulness of sleep. In a cruel and methodical act, the murderer bludgeoned each member of the Moore family and the visiting children with an axe, striking them in their beds as they slept. In total, 8 people were killed: Josiah and Sarah Moore, their 4 children, and Lena and Ina Stillinger. The scene was so horrific that even experienced investigators were stunned by the brutality. Some victims were struck multiple times, their bodies contorted in unnatural positions as if struggling to escape their fate. The crime was not only savage but also calculated, leaving no immediate clues as to the identity of the killer. The discovery of the bodies the next morning sent shockwaves through the community. Neighbors who had come to visit or check on the family were horrified by what they found. Word spread quickly, and residents of Villisca were gripped by fear. Who could commit such a crime in a quiet town where everyone knew one another? The idea that such evil could enter their midst and strike a family while they slept shattered the sense of safety that had defined their community. Investigators immediately launched a search for the killer, but the case proved frustratingly elusive. Suspicion fell on several individuals, including a traveling minister named Reverend George Kelly, who had a history of violence and odd behavior, and a man named Frank F. Jones, a local businessman with motives rooted in political and personal rivalry. Yet despite multiple arrests and interrogations, no one was ever convicted. Physical evidence was scant, and eyewitness accounts offered little clarity. The house itself remained in the Moore family for a time before changing hands. Yet no matter who lived there, reports of unusual and terrifying activity persisted. Residents and visitors alike began to describe strange occurrences, lights flickering without explanation, doors opening and closing on their own, and the faint sound of footsteps pacing across empty rooms. Many spoke of a feeling of intense dread upon entering the house, a heavy, oppressive atmosphere that seemed to press down on anyone who spent time inside. Some claimed to hear whispers in the night, as if the victims themselves were trying to communicate from beyond the grave. Paranormal investigators and ghost hunters have flocked to the Villisca Axe Murder House over the years, drawn by its reputation as one of America's most haunted homes. Many report hearing the cries of children in the upstairs bedrooms, despite no living children being present. Cold spots appear suddenly in hallways, and some guests experience unexplained scratches or bruises after spending the night. Cameras and recording devices often malfunction, and electronic voice phenomena have captured faint whispers that seem to plead for help or repeat the word murder. Visitors frequently describe feeling watched, as if unseen eyes followed their movements through the dimly lit hallways. The upstairs bedrooms, where the children and adults were killed, are the most frequently reported sites of activity. Guests claim to see shadowy figures moving along the walls or crouching near the beds. Some have reported smelling the distinct scent of a child's perfume or the faint aroma of wood smoke, as though the house itself is replaying the events of that fateful night. The large windows, once covered with curtains, now allow sunlight to illuminate rooms where the shadows of past horrors linger, creating a stark contrast between the home's outward charm and its dark interior. Over time, the Villisca Axe Murder House became both a museum and a site for overnight stays, allowing visitors to immerse themselves in the history and mystery of the home. Guides provide detailed accounts of the murders and the subsequent investigation, often warning guests about the eerie energy that remains within the walls. Some visitors leave feeling exhilarated, while others are overwhelmed with fear, claiming that the house's energy is almost tangible, a mix of sorrow, anger, and unresolved violence that refuses to dissipate. Despite its notoriety, the Villisca Axe Murder House has endured as a historical landmark. Its Victorian architecture, high ceilings, and original woodwork remain largely intact, preserving the atmosphere of early 20th century Iowa. Yet every corner carries a sense of unease, every room a story of lives abruptly ended. For those who visit, it is impossible to separate the beauty of the home from the horrors that unfolded within. The house itself seems to serve as both a memorial and a warning, reminding visitors of the fragility of life and the darkness that can exist even in seemingly quiet towns. Today, the Villisca Axe Murder House continues to draw those who seek to understand the unknown. Whether approached as a historical site or a paranormal destination, the house's legacy of murder and mystery remains potent. The story of the Moore family and their young visitors is etched not only into the history of Villisca, but also into the very fabric of the house, leaving a chilling reminder that some tragedies are never truly laid to rest. Even after more than a century, the house whispers of that night in 1912, of the terror, the unanswered questions, and the restless spirits that may never find peace. Amid the rolling hills and historic fields of Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, stands the Farnsworth House in a stately brick structure that has quietly borne witness to one of the bloodiest battles in American history. Built in the early 19th century, the house served as a private residence before becoming a hospital during the Civil War, sheltering wounded soldiers in its rooms and hallways. Today, it functions as a bed and breakfast, offering visitors the chance to stay within its storied walls. Yet, while the inn is warm and inviting on the surface, many guests claim it harbors the restless spirits of those who died there, their presence lingering in the hallways, parlors, and surrounding grounds. During the summer of 1863, the Battle of Gettysburg raged across the town and countryside, leaving thousands dead or wounded. The Farnsworth House, like many other homes in the area, was pressed into service as a makeshift hospital for soldiers from both sides of the conflict. Rooms that once hosted family gatherings were transformed into wards filled with the groans of men recovering from bullets, bayonets, and cannon fire. Blood-stained floors, makeshift operating tables, and the cries of the dying became part of the house's daily life. Those who survived carried the memory of the house's harsh care with them, but many never left at all. It is perhaps this legacy of trauma that has given the Farnsworth House its reputation for haunting. Guests often recount hearing footsteps echoing through the inn's hallways, even when no one else is present. Antique furnishings, chairs, tables, and dressers sometimes appear slightly moved or shifted overnight, as if someone unseen has adjusted them. Visitors report sudden cold spots in rooms that are otherwise warm, a phenomenon that seems to intensify during the night. Some claim to hear whispered conversations in empty rooms, the faint, sorrowful voices of soldiers or nurses from a bygone era. The bedrooms are said to carry some of the most intense activity. One frequently mentioned room is the upstairs corner chamber, where guests have reported the sensation of being watched, even when alone. Footsteps pacing back and forth outside the door, the sound of bed springs creaking, and sudden, inexplicable drafts are common experiences. Some guests have felt the weight of a hand pressing lightly on their shoulder or sensed a presence leaning over the bed. While frightening, these encounters are often described with an eerie sense of sadness rather than malice, as if the spirits are merely replaying moments from their lives. Death during the battle. In addition to the hallways and rooms, the grounds surrounding the Farnsworth House are also said to be active with ghostly presences. During the Civil War, soldiers were tended to in tents and temporary shelters on the property, and some never survived the makeshift care they received. Visitors to the inn have reported glimpses of shadowy figures moving across the lawns and gardens. Figures dressed in period uniforms, sometimes carrying stretchers or appearing to march in formation. At night, the sounds of distant gunfire or the low murmur of men talking in the dark have been reported by guests walking the property. Even though no living humans are nearby, the inn's owners have long embraced the building's history, preserving its antique charm while allowing guests to experience the echoes of the past. Original wood floors, large fireplaces, and period furnishings contribute to an atmosphere steeped in history. Yet these same features seem to amplify the paranormal activity. Chandeliers sway slightly with no breeze, floorboards creak beneath invisible footsteps, and doors open and close without explanation. Many believe that these occurrences are the imprints of events from the Civil War, echoes of pain and suffering that remain trapped within the structure, replaying again and again for anyone sensitive enough to notice. Paranormal investigators frequently visit the Farnsworth House, hoping to capture evidence of its haunted reputation. They report cold spots, anomalous sounds, and electronic disturbances, such as flickering lights or malfunctioning cameras. Some have captured unexplained figures on video, appearing as shadowy soldiers in the hallways, or orbs of light floating through rooms that were once hospital wards. Guests who stay overnight often leave with stories of doors opening and closing on their own, beds that feel as though they have been pressed down by an unseen weight, and whispers that seem to call their names in the darkness. The stories of hauntings at the Farnsworth House Inn are not limited to frightening experiences. Many visitors describe a sense of melancholy, a lingering sadness that seems to emanate from the walls themselves. Some interpret this as the residual grief of soldiers who suffered and died within the house, trapped in the moments of their final hours. Others believe the spirits are benign, silently observing life as it continues around them, occasionally making their presence known to those willing to notice. In either case, the inn has become a magnet for those drawn to history, mystery, and the unexplained. Today, the Farnsworth House Inn operates as a fully functioning bed and breakfast, offering modern comfort alongside its historic charm. Guests can enjoy the architecture, antique furnishings, and hospitality, all while surrounded by the lingering energy of the past. Many visitors deliberately book rooms overnight, hoping to experience the paranormal firsthand. Some leave with stories of ghostly soldiers, sudden cold drafts, or the feeling of unseen eyes following them through the halls. Others simply enjoy the sense of stepping into a home where history is alive, tangible, and sometimes unsettling. Whether the experiences are the result of lingering spirits or the power of imagination, the Farnsworth House Inn remains a place where the past is never truly gone. The echoes of the Civil War, the suffering of wounded soldiers, and the tireless care of those who tended them are embedded in the house itself, creating an atmosphere that is difficult to forget. For those who visit, it is a journey into history and a brush with the unknown, a chance to witness the intersection of life, death, and memory within the walls of one of Gettysburg's most enduringly haunted homes. The Farnsworth House Inn stands as a testament to the power of history, a home that holds the stories of heroism, suffering, and lingering presence within its walls. As guests walk its hallways, rest in its rooms, or wander its grounds, they are not merely visiting a historic building, they are walking alongside echoes of the past, feeling the weight of memory and the whisper of souls who may never have left. In Gettysburg, a place where history itself is haunted, the Farnsworth House Inn continues to be a destination for those who seek to witness the past in a way that is both tangible and profoundly unsettling. Boat Castle, perched on Hart Island in the St. Lawrence River near Alexandria Bay, New York, is a monument to love, ambition, and tragedy. Constructed in the early 20th century by millionaire hotel magnate George C. Bolt, the castle was intended as a grand tribute to his wife, Louise, inspired by European architecture and designed to rival the grandest estates of the Gilded Age. Bolt Castle was to be a symbol of their devotion, but before it could be completed, tragedy struck. Louise died suddenly in 1904, and George Bolt immediately halted all construction, leaving the sprawling complex abandoned for decades. Today, Bolt Castle stands partially restored, a beautiful yet eerie testament to love interrupted, and many visitors claim that the spirit of Louise Bolt still wanders its halls. The story of Bolt Castle begins with George and Louise Bolt, a wealthy couple who embodied the prosperity of the early 1900s. George was a successful hotelier, managing the renowned Waldorf Astoria in New York City, while Louise was his devoted partner in life and society. Their love story inspired George to embark on an ambitious project to construct a magnificent castle on Hart Island, where the couple could escape the pressures of the city and indulge in the pleasures of the St. Lawrence River. Work on the castle began in 1900, with architects and craftsmen brought in from Europe and across the United States to realize Bolt's vision. The plans included grand halls, luxurious bedrooms, towers, and a drawbridge connecting the island to the mainland. Every detail was meticulously designed to impress, from ornate stonework to intricately carved wood interiors. Construction of the castle was progressing rapidly, and workers poured thousands of hours into completing what was intended to be a symbol of eternal love. But in 1904, Louise Bolt fell ill and passed away suddenly while visiting her family in Philadelphia. The grief-stricken George was inconsolable. Heartbroken and unable to continue, he ordered all work on the castle to stop immediately. Contractors were dismissed, equipment abandoned, and the partially completed structure was left to the elements. The unfinished towers, empty windows, and exposed interiors became a haunting silhouette against the river, a stark reminder of love and ambition cut short. For 70 years, Bolt Castle remained abandoned, slowly succumbing to decay. Roofs caved in, walls were overtaken by vines, and the river's damp air eroded stone and mortar. Birds nested in the empty halls, and wildlife roamed freely among the unfinished floors. The beauty of the architecture remained, but the sense of incompletion and lingering sorrow permeated the grounds. Locals began to tell stories about the castle, claiming that the island was haunted by the ghost of Louise Bolt. Some said that at night, a woman in a flowing gown could be seen moving along the terraces, while others reported hearing the faint sound of laughter and music echoing from the empty halls. The tales of hauntings are numerous and often intertwined with the romantic tragedy of the Bolts. Visitors describe rooms where the temperature drops suddenly, unexplained cold drafts in hallways, and objects appearing to move slightly, as if guided by an unseen hand. Some have reported hearing footsteps echoing across the grand marble floors when no one else is present. On the river-facing terraces, figures resembling Louise are said to appear at sunset, gazing out over the water as if waiting for George to return. Others claim that the soft strains of a piano can sometimes be heard, playing a melody that seems impossibly delicate and distant. Paranormal enthusiasts believe that the spirit of Louise Bolt has remained on Hart Island, drawn by her unfinished home and the love she shared with George. Some suggest that she is protective of the castle, ensuring that visitors respect the history and the sanctity of the grounds. Photographs taken within the castle sometimes show faint orbs of light, misty figures, or shadows that cannot be explained by natural causes. Guides who lead tours report that staff occasionally feel watched or sense a presence nearby when no one else is around. Children visiting the castle have claimed to see a kind-faced woman wandering the corridors, smiling and disappearing when approached. Despite its tragic beginnings, Bolt Castle underwent restoration starting in the 1970s, when the Thousand Islands Bridge Authority began extensive efforts to preserve and rebuild the structure. Work focused on completing sections of the castle that had been started over 70 years earlier, repairing crumbling masonry, restoring wooden interiors, and rebuilding towers to reflect the original designs. Today, the castle is a major tourist attraction, allowing visitors to explore the opulent halls, grand staircases, and unfinished corners that still bear the marks of its tragic past. Yet, even with careful restoration, the castle retains an aura of melancholy, a sense that something is missing, perhaps the presence of the woman for whom it was built. Visitors often describe the castle as beautiful, romantic, and inspiring, yet tinged with an almost palpable sadness. Walking along the river-facing balconies, the empty halls echo with the dreams and sorrow of a bygone era. The unfinished rooms, still exposed in places, serve as a reminder of George Bolt's heartbreak and the life that was cut short for Louise. Many say that the castle feels alive, as if memories of the past are trapped within its walls, replaying faintly for those who are sensitive to such energies. Bolt Castle is more than a historical monument. It is a story of love, loss, and lingering presence. For those who visit, it offers both a glimpse into the lavish lifestyle of America's Gilded Age and a brush with the unseen. Some come hoping to witness paranormal phenomena, others to experience history firsthand, but all leave with a sense of the powerful emotions that once filled the halls. The castle stands as a monument, not just to architecture and wealth, but to the enduring impact of love and grief, preserved in stone and spirit alike. Even today, as the sun sets over the St. Lawrence River, visitors to Bolt Castle may catch a glimpse of a figure in flowing white, standing along a balcony, watching the water, or hear the faint strains of music echoing through the empty halls. In this way, Bolt Castle continues to hold both its history and its haunting. A testament to the love of George and Louise Bolt and the tragedy that immortalized their story on Hart Island. It is a place where beauty, sorrow, and the supernatural intertwine, creating an unforgettable experience for all who step across its threshold. The Joshua Ward House in Salem, Massachusetts, stands as a silent witness to some of the darkest chapters in American history. Built in 1784, the house occupies ground steeped in tragedy and legend. Its foundations rest upon the site of the infamous High Sheriff's House, a location closely tied to the Salem witch trials of 1692, where accused witches were interrogated, tortured, and executed. Over the centuries, the Joshua Ward House has gained a reputation not just for its architectural charm but also for the restless spirits said to linger within its walls. Many visitors, historians, and paranormal enthusiasts believe that the energy of those long dead continues to resonate in the hallways, casting a shadow that refuses to dissipate. Salem, in the late 17th century, was a town gripped by fear, superstition, and religious fervor. Accusations of witchcraft spread rapidly, fueled by paranoia and long-standing tensions among neighbors. The High Sheriff's House was a central location during these trials, where interrogations and detentions took place. Most infamously, it is associated with Giles Corey, a farmer who was accused of witchcraft and subjected to the brutal punishment of pressing. With heavy stones placed upon his chest, Corey refused to enter a plea, choosing instead to die under the weight of the stones rather than submit to the court's authority. His defiance and the suffering he endured left an indelible mark upon the site. Many believe that the energy of his final moments, along with the fear and anguish of others accused during the trials, became imprinted on the land. In 1784, nearly a century after the trials, Joshua Ward, a prosperous merchant, constructed a new home on the site. The house was built in the Georgian style, featuring symmetrical windows, a brick facade, and elegant interiors, befitting a man of Ward's stature. To outsiders, it appeared to be a stately and serene residence, reflecting the success and social standing of its owner. Yet for those who were sensitive to history or the supernatural, the location carried a weight that could not be ignored. The ground beneath the house, steeped in sorrow, violence, and injustice, seemed to retain a memory of the past, whispering to those who entered its doors. Stories of hauntings at the Joshua Ward House began to circulate shortly after it was built. Residents reported unexplained sounds, footsteps echoing across empty hallways, doors opening and closing on their own, and the faint murmur of voices late at night. Some claimed to see shadowy figures flitting through rooms, vanishing when approached, while others spoke of cold spots that seemed to follow them throughout the house. These phenomena were often linked to the spirits of those accused of witchcraft during Salem's dark days, including the ghost of Giles Corey, whose final act of defiance had left a profound imprint upon the land. Corey's spirit is said to manifest as a dark, hulking presence, often felt in rooms where the weight of his death seems to linger the most. Guests and caretakers have reported sudden pressure on their chests, as though an unseen hand were pressing down, mirroring the stones that ended his life. Some hear groaning or muttering in low guttural tones, echoing Corey's suffering, while others describe the sensation of being watched by a figure who is visible only in the corner of one's eye. It is as if his defiance and pain continue to resonate, refusing to be silenced even centuries later. Beyond Corey, the spirits of other individuals accused during the witch trials are also said to linger. Within the Joshua Ward House, apparitions of women in colonial dress, their faces etched with fear and sorrow, have been reported near the original foundations. Cold drafts, inexplicable chills, and sudden drops in temperature are common experiences for those visiting the house. Some have heard the creak of unseen footsteps pacing the floors, particularly in rooms built over the original High Sheriff's offices, as if the past and present exist simultaneously within the walls. Visitors have reported fleeting glimpses of figures staring from windows, or the distant sound of chains clinking as though prisoners of history are still trapped within the building. Over the years, the Joshua Ward House has been both a residence and a place of business, with owners often remarking on the peculiar energy that fills the space. Historical tours and paranormal investigations have sought to document the unexplained activity, capturing ghostly images, orbs, and electronic voice phenomena that suggest a lingering presence. Many investigators suggest that the house is a kind of energy trap, a site where extreme fear, pain, and injustice were concentrated, leaving a permanent mark upon the physical and spiritual landscape. Visitors today often describe a combination of fascination and unease when stepping into the Joshua Ward house. The stately architecture, preserved period furnishings, and antique decor create a sense of stepping back in time. But alongside the charm of history, there is an awareness of the house's haunted legacy. Some describe hearing whispers calling their names, feeling invisible fingers brush against them, or sensing sudden, inexplicable heaviness in the air. Shadows seem to move independently, and the feeling of being observed is a recurring theme. Many attribute these experiences to the spirits of the accused, unable to find peace due to the injustices they endured during Salem's witch trials. The Joshua Ward house stands as both a historical landmark and a symbol of unresolved tragedy. Its walls, floors, and hidden rooms bear witness to centuries of human emotion, fear, suffering, courage, and defiance. It is a place where the horrors of the past remain tangible, woven into the very fabric of the building. Some visitors leave with only a sense of awe at the architecture and history, while others leave deeply unsettled, having felt the palpable presence of spirits unwilling to rest. Today, the Joshua Ward house attracts historians, paranormal enthusiasts, and curious travelers seeking a glimpse into Salem's past. It is a home that bridges the gap between history and legend, offering insight into the cruelty and fear of the witch trials, while simultaneously serving as a stage for paranormal activity. The spirits said to dwell within its walls, Giles Corey, the accused women, and others remain as a reminder that the injustices of the past are not easily forgotten. For those who enter the Joshua Ward house, the experience is both a journey into early American history and a confrontation with the lingering echoes of human suffering, a haunting that transcends time and continues to captivate all who step across its threshold. The Octagon House in Fond du Lac, Wisconsin, stands as one of the most enigmatic and intriguing historic homes in America. Built in 1856 by wealthy businessman George Chaffee, the house is an architectural curiosity, shaped as an 8-sided octagon, with 9 secret passages and hidden tunnels woven throughout its walls. Over the years, the home has been the subject of speculation, legend, and mystery. Its unusual design, combined with rumors that it served as a safe house on the Underground Railroad, has made the Octagon House a magnet for historians, ghost hunters, and curious visitors. Today, it is renowned not only for its architectural innovation, but also for the paranormal activity reported within its walls, as though the past refuses to remain hidden. George Chaffee was a prominent figure in Fond du Lac during the mid-19th century. Inspired by the octagonal home movement popularized by Orson Squire Fowler, he envisioned a house that would combine aesthetics with practicality, bringing light, air, and spacious living to his family. But Chaffee's design went further than most. Behind its elegant facades, carefully constructed rooms, and ornate woodwork, the Octagon House was built with secret compartments, hidden stairways, and tunnels that remain a source of fascination to this day. Locals whispered that Chaffee had intentions beyond mere architectural curiosity, using these hidden features to aid runaway slaves seeking freedom via the Underground Railroad. Though definitive evidence of its use in that capacity is scarce, the idea has endured, adding an air of nobility and danger to the house's mystique. The house's layout is both intriguing and disorienting. Visitors and historians alike note the labyrinthine quality of its interior, with passages that twist through walls, stairways that lead to unexpected rooms, and doors that open to reveal nothing more than empty voids or hidden storage areas. Many of these tunnels were constructed with meticulous craftsmanship, their presence known only to those who understood the home's secrets. In a time of secrecy and fear, such hidden spaces would have been invaluable for protecting those fleeing slavery, shielding them from prying eyes, and allowing them to move undetected through the home. Even today, the secret passages remain a source of fascination, with some yet to be fully mapped. leaving a lingering sense of mystery in every creaky floorboard and shadowed corridor. Paranormal activity has long been associated with the Octagon House, with reports of strange sounds, fleeting figures, and unexplained occurrences tracing back decades. Guests and caretakers alike describe sudden cold spots in rooms that are otherwise warm, doors opening and closing on their own, and objects moving without explanation. Footsteps echo across floors when no one else is present, and whispers are sometimes heard, as if the house itself is recounting stories from its hidden past. Many attribute these phenomena to the restless spirits of those who once sought refuge in its secret chambers. Individuals who may have been fleeing for their lives or who perished nearby, leaving their energy embedded in the walls. The house's unusual design also seems to amplify these experiences. Its many angles, hidden staircases, and confined spaces create pockets where sound and energy behave unpredictably. Visitors often report feeling a presence behind them, only to turn and find empty corridors. Some claim to see shadowy figures darting through hidden doorways or glimpses of a person standing at the end of a hallway, disappearing when approached. The tunnels themselves are often described as particularly eerie, with an oppressive atmosphere that can cause even seasoned explorers to feel uneasy. Some speculate that the spirits of those who once relied on the home's secret passages remain, watching over the hidden routes, their presence a protective echo of their lives or deaths. In addition to unexplained phenomena, the Octagon House has a reputation for the peculiar and unsettling. Mirrors sometimes reflect shadows that are not present, and photographs taken within the home occasionally reveal strange orbs, misty shapes, or figures partially hidden behind objects. Guests report a sudden sense of heaviness, as though the history of the home presses down upon them, or the sensation of being watched, even in rooms that appear entirely empty. Some claim to hear the faint sound of chains or muffled cries, as though echoes from the Underground Railroad days or tragic events long past are replaying, trapped in the home's structure. The Octagon House's history, architecture, and paranormal activity combine to create a place that is both fascinating and unnerving. Its octagonal design sets it apart from any typical Victorian-era home, while its labyrinth of secret passages hints at stories that were never meant to be told openly. Visitors often describe a sense of stepping back in time, wandering through spaces where history, mystery, and the supernatural intersect. The house feels alive, as if the walls themselves carry memories of the people who walked, hid, and perhaps died within its chambers. Over the years, the Octagon House has been preserved as a historical landmark, allowing visitors to explore its winding corridors, hidden rooms, and distinctive architecture. While many come to admire its unique design and learn about its past, others are drawn by tales of ghostly sightings and paranormal encounters. Guides recount stories passed down through generations, warning of cold spots in hallways, unexplained noises, and the sense of unseen watchers. For some, the house offers a thrilling experience, a tangible connection to both the hidden lives of those seeking freedom and the lingering spirits who may never have escaped. The Octagon House stands as a testament to ingenuity, secrecy, and history's lingering power. Its secret passages and tunnels whisper of bravery, fear, and resilience, while the reported hauntings offer a reminder that the past never fully disappears. For those who walk its halls, whether by curiosity, historical interest, or a desire to encounter the unexplained, the Octagon House offers an immersive experience where architecture and the supernatural converge. Every creaking floorboard, shadowed corner, and hidden doorway tells a story, inviting visitors to uncover the mysteries that lie within. To step into a house where history, legend, and the unknown intertwine. Even today, the Octagon House continues to intrigue and unsettle all who enter. A place where hidden passages hide untold stories, and where the past refuses to remain silent. It is a house of secrets, of history, and of lingering spirits, preserving the mysteries of the Underground Railroad and the echoes of those who walked its shadowed halls. Franklin Castle, also known as the Tiedemann House, looms like a dark sentinel along Franklin Boulevard in Cleveland, Ohio. With its elaborate stonework, arched windows, and turreted towers. The house looks every bit the Gothic fortress it's reputed to be. To passers-by, it's simply an old Victorian mansion, grand, perhaps even beautiful. But those who know its history speak of it in hushed tones, for within its walls, tragedy piled upon tragedy, and the echoes of sorrow have never truly faded. Many call it the most haunted house in Ohio, and few who have entered would dare to argue. The story begins in the late 1880s, when German immigrant Hans Tiedemann commissioned the home as a grand residence for his family. Tiedemann had built his fortune through hard work and ambition, climbing from a modest immigrant background to become a respected banker and grocer. The mansion he constructed on Franklin Boulevard was meant to be a symbol of success, a statement of permanence and prosperity. But as soon as the Tiedemann family moved in, the promise of the house turned dark. Within a short span of years, a chain of deaths began to shadow the family. The first to die was Tiedemann's young daughter, Emma, who was only 15. Some said she succumbed to diabetes. Others whispered that her death was far more mysterious, perhaps even violent. Her loss devastated the family, particularly her mother, Louise, who soon fell into a deep depression. Not long after, Hans's elderly mother, Vibeke, also passed away inside the home. Then, one by one, more relatives followed. The family's grief seemed endless, as though the house itself had absorbed their sorrow and was feeding on it. As the tragedies mounted, rumors began to circulate. Neighbors spoke of strange sights, in the windows figures moving long after the family had gone to bed. Servants claimed to hear footsteps in empty rooms, doors opening and closing by themselves, and the faint sound of a girl sobbing when no one else was in the house. The air inside, they said, always felt heavy, as though the walls themselves were mourning. To distract himself from loss, Hans began making alterations to the mansion additions and passageways that seemed to serve no clear purpose. He ordered hidden rooms built behind false walls, secret staircases, and narrow corridors that twisted through the interior. Some were large enough to hide people and others were mere crawl spaces. No one knew why he added them, though some speculated they were remnants of old European paranoia places to conceal valuables or escape in case of attack. Others suspected something far darker. In time, Louise's mental state deteriorated. She became reclusive and withdrawn, wandering the halls of Franklin Castle at all hours. Servants claimed she spoke to unseen figures and kept candles burning in rooms long unused. The sound of her pacing echoed through the night, until, eventually, she too passed away within the house's cold stone walls. Hans followed not long after, leaving behind a legacy of grief, unanswered questions, and an architectural labyrinth that defied reason. After the Tiedemanns, the mansion changed hands several times, each new owner adding their own layer to the legend. During Prohibition, it was rumored that the house's hidden passages and tunnels were used to smuggle bootleg liquor. Later, during World War II, some believed it served as a meeting place for German spies, an accusation that, while never proven, fed the aura of secrecy that clung to the building. But it was in the years following the war that the house's reputation truly began to spiral into the realm of the supernatural. Tenants reported objects moving on their own, lights flickering despite new wiring, and voices whispering just beyond hearing. One family claimed that a heavy chandelier had swung violently without cause, while another insisted they had seen a woman in white standing at the top of the main staircase. She vanished the moment they called out to her. The most chilling stories, however, revolve around the so-called hidden rooms. When renovations were undertaken in the mid-20th century, workers claimed to discover a small, concealed chamber behind a wall. Inside, according to legend, they found the bones of several small children. Police records never confirmed the discovery, yet the tale persists, passed along by locals who believe the house's secrets are too deep to ever be fully uncovered. Some say the spirit of Emma Tiedemann remains the most active presence in Franklin Castle. Visitors have described the faint laughter of a young girl echoing through the hallways, doors that unlock themselves, and cold drafts that appear suddenly, as though someone has just walked past. Others report seeing a woman in black near the windows, believed to be Louise Tiedemann, forever searching for her lost children. Footsteps are often heard in the attic, and the pipe organ that once stood in the parlor is said to play faintly at night, though it has been broken for decades. Investigators and paranormal teams have spent countless nights inside the mansion, recording unexplainable phenomena. EMF meters spike in certain rooms without electrical sources. Audio devices pick up whispers, moans, and cries when no one is speaking. One team captured what they claimed was the sound of heavy boots walking across the upstairs landing, even though all members were downstairs. Another investigator reported feeling a sudden, intense sadness upon entering one of the back rooms, a sorrow so overwhelming that he had to leave immediately. Despite its haunted reputation, Franklin Castle has always drawn curious visitors, fascinated by its tragic history and ominous beauty. The current structure, with its weathered stone facade and wrought iron details, seems to absorb the changing light in strange ways, bright and golden at dawn, then dark and foreboding by dusk. Tourists who pass by often stop to stare, sensing something beyond mere architecture, something alive in the stillness. The castle's name itself adds to its legend. Franklin Castle sounds noble, but it was never a castle in the medieval sense. It is a mansion shaped by grief, ambition, and perhaps guilt, a monument to the Tiedemann family's rise and fall. Some believe that Hans' alterations to the House Warren random but attempts to trap or hide the restless spirits that plagued him. If true, it would mean the house's maze-like design wasn't madness, but desperation. Today, Franklin Castle stands as both a historical landmark and a reminder of human fragility. The structure has survived fires, neglect, and countless retellings of its mysteries. Restoration efforts have tried to reclaim it, yet no amount of repair seems to erase its darkness. Visitors who have spent time inside say the house has moods, sometimes silent and watchful, sometimes loud and angry. Lights flicker even with stable wiring, and certain rooms remain unnaturally cold. Perhaps the house is haunted by the Tiedemans, or perhaps it's haunted by the weight of human sorrow itself. Buildings, after all, can absorb emotion, the laughter, the grief, the desperation of those who once lived within their walls. Franklin Castle seems to have absorbed more than its share. In the upscale Pacific Heights neighborhood of San Francisco stands an ornate Victorian mansion whose beauty hides a darker legacy, the Chambers Mansion. Built in 1887, the Grand Estate is a relic of San Francisco's Gilded Age, a time when wealth and status shaped the city's elite. Its elaborate gables, arched windows, and intricate woodwork make it an architectural masterpiece. But to those who know its history, the house represents something far more sinister. For more than a century, whispers of tragedy, madness, and restless spirits have surrounded the Chambers Mansion, earning it a place among the most haunted locations in California. The story begins with its original owner, R.L. Chambers, a wealthy silver mine magnate who had achieved great success during the late 19th century. Chambers was known for his business acumen, an imposing presence, a man used to commanding respect. He built the mansion for his wife, Eudora, as a testament to his success. The couple filled their new home with lavish furnishings imported from Europe, crystal chandeliers, and fine art. To the outside world, they were the picture of affluence and elegance. But behind closed doors, the household was said to be filled with tension and silence. Eudora Chambers was quiet and withdrawn, rarely seen at social gatherings. Neighbors noticed that her husband often left her alone for long stretches, preferring the company of business associates to that of his wife. The mansion's many rooms echoed with emptiness, and some servants later claimed they would hear muffled sobs from Eudora's chambers late at night. Despite the grandeur of the surroundings, the air in the home felt heavy and stifled by secrets no one dared to voice. Then, without warning, tragedy struck. In the early 1900s, R.L. Chambers died under mysterious circumstances. Some accounts say it was a sudden illness. Others whisper it was something far less natural. After his death, Eudora inherited the mansion but lived in it only intermittently, often retreating from public life entirely. With no children of her own, she invited her two nieces, sisters Claudia and Lillian, to move in with her. From the start, their presence seemed to bring renewed life to the mansion, but also new troubles. The sisters were close, though markedly different. Lillian was quiet, artistic, and fond of solitude, while Claudia was known for her sharp wit and fiery temper. Servants recalled the two, arguing constantly about money and inheritance. Each convinced Eudora favored the other. The tension between them grew until one winter night, something terrible happened. According to legend, the sisters' feud ended in blood. One version of the story claims that Lillian, driven by rage, attacked Claudia with a sharp instrument, possibly a pair of sewing shears, and killed her in the house. Another account says Claudia was found brutally murdered in her bedroom, her body mutilated beyond recognition, while Lillian vanished without explanation. Police records from the time are inconclusive, and no charges were ever filed, but the whispers persisted. The Chambers mansion became known not as a home of luxury, but of death. Eudora, already fragile from years of grief, fell into madness after the incident. Neighbors said she could be heard screaming her niece's names at all hours of the night, wandering the halls with a candle in hand. The once vibrant mansion became a prison for her, until she, too, died within its walls. After her death, the house stood empty for years, its windows dark, its doors closed. Locals began to avoid the property, claiming to see figures moving in the upper windows, even though the house was unoccupied. When new owners eventually purchased the mansion, they set about restoring it, hoping to erase its grim reputation. Yet workers soon began to experience strange occurrences. Tools vanished and reappeared in odd places. Footsteps echoed in empty corridors. One painter reportedly quit after hearing a woman's voice whisper his name directly in his ear, though he was alone on the second floor. Others described sudden cold drafts and doors that opened and slammed shut without reason. The new owners brushed it off as imagination, till they started hearing footsteps above them in the dead of night. In the years that followed, the Chambers mansion was converted into apartments and later operated as a bed and breakfast. Guests who stayed overnight often reported eerie encounters. Many described waking in the middle of the night to see the shadow of a woman standing at the foot of their bed. Others felt the mattress dip as if someone unseen had sat beside them. The smell of old perfume, floral, and faintly sweet wood drift through rooms with no apparent source. Some guests heard crying, soft and distant, echoing through the long hallways. Paranormal investigators who have explored the mansion claim the building is a hotbed of activity. Cold spots appear suddenly, even during warm weather. EMF meters spike in specific rooms, particularly those believed to have been bedrooms during the Chambers era. Voices have been captured on audio recordings, whispers that seem to say names or plead for help. One team reported hearing the distinct sound of a woman's laughter coming from an upstairs parlor, though no one else was in the house. The most frequently seen apparition is that of a young woman in white, believed to be Claudia or perhaps Lillian, wandering the hallways. Witnesses describe her as graceful but sorrowful, gliding silently through the second floor before vanishing into walls. In some reports, she appears near the staircase, as though eternally descending toward some unseen doom. On stormy nights, passersby have claimed to see lights flickering in the windows and the silhouette of a woman standing behind the lace curtains, watching the street below. Despite its macabre reputation, the Chambers mansion remains an enduring landmark of San Francisco history. Its architecture stands as a reminder of the city's opulent past, but its legends tell another story, a tale of human frailty, jealousy, and lingering grief. Tour guides who include it on haunted tours often speak of it as a place where the past refuses to die. Even skeptics who enter the mansion remark on an uneasy feeling, as if the walls themselves are watching. Some historians have tried to separate fact from fiction, suggesting that the grisly stories of murder and madness may be exaggerated. Yet even those who doubt the legends can't deny the unease that hangs over the property. The creak of the old floors, the way shadows move strangely along the ornate woodwork, the persistent sense of being observed all contribute to an atmosphere that feels undeniably haunted. Today, the Chambers mansion has been restored and repurposed, but the spirits, it seems, have not left. Tenants and visitors continue to report odd sounds, flickering lights, and disembodied voices. Whether it's the lingering sorrow of Eudora Chambers, the restless spirits of her nieces, or simply the echo of tragedy embedded in the wood and stone. No one can say for sure. As night falls over Pacific Heights, the mansion's towering silhouette stands out against the dim San Francisco sky. The ornate windows catch the glow of passing streetlights, and for a fleeting moment, some claim they can see a woman's face, gazing out a pale outline framed by lace curtains. Then, as the light shifts, she vanishes, leaving only darkness behind. The Chambers mansion remains a paradox, a home both magnificent and mournful, filled with beauty and dread in equal measure. Those who have stood within its halls describe it best. It feels alive, as though the building itself remembers everything that has happened inside it. And perhaps it does, holding tightly to its secrets, refusing to let them rest. In Niagara Falls, Ontario, where the streets buzz with tourists and neon lights reflect off the mist from the Great Falls, there sits a building that almost dares you to enter. The sign above its dark doorway reads Nightmares, Fear Factory, and it has become one of the most infamous haunted attractions in the world. For decades, it has drawn in the brave and the curious, offering them a test of courage that many fail. More than 170,000 visitors have chickened out, turning back before the end. Yet those who walk through its shadowed corridors insist that something inside feels different, something not entirely fabricated by the attraction's clever design. According to local lore, the building that houses Nightmare's Fear Factory was once a real coffin factory owned by a man named Abraham Mortimer. In the late 1800s, Mortimer was known for his skill in crafting caskets, serving both the wealthy and the destitute with equal precision. His workshop stood on the outskirts of the bustling tourist town, and from dawn until dusk, the hammering of nails and the scent of fresh-cut wood filled the air. But while Mortimer's craftsmanship was respected, his personality was not. He was said to be a recluse, strange, severe, and fiercely protective of his workshop. As the story goes, one evening a group of local boys decided to break into the factory as a prank. They wanted to see the inside of the legendary workshop, where rumors said Mortimer sometimes worked late into the night beside open coffins. When Mortimer heard the intruders, he chased them through the factory's dark aisles. In the chaos, tragedy struck. He fell into one of his own open casket elevators and, early mechanism used to move coffins between floors, and was crushed to death. By morning, the factory was silent, and Abraham Mortimer's lifeless body was discovered among his unfinished work. After his death, the factory closed, but locals began whispering that Mortimer never left. People passing by late at night claimed to see lights flickering inside. Some heard hammering or footsteps echoing through the empty halls. Even after the building was abandoned, no one wanted to purchase it. It sat untouched for decades, a decaying shell with a growing reputation for being cursed. When Nightmare's Fear Factory opened in the late 1980s, it embraced that grim backstory wholeheartedly. The attraction's creators transformed the space into a labyrinth of darkness, designed not just to scare, but to unsettle, to get inside the mind of its visitors. Unlike other haunted houses, filled with flashing lights and cheap jump scares, Nightmares relies on darkness, sound, and psychology. Guests walk through pitch-black hallways, guided only by the sound of their own breathing and the faint whispers that echo through hidden speakers. The rules are simple. You walk through at your own pace, and if at any point you can't take it anymore, you shout the secret code, Nightmares, and staff will escort you out. Many never make it to the end, yet some insist that what they experience inside goes far beyond stage effects. Countless visitors have reported sensations that can't be explained by props or sound design. Some feel cold hands brush against their necks, or hear whispers directly in their ears. Others say they feel someone or something following them closely in the dark, breathing just inches behind them. There are even accounts of guests seeing a shadowed figure in the dim red light near the attraction's end, standing perfectly still, watching. Staff have dismissed it as imagination, but a few former employees quietly admit that they've seen it too. Paranormal investigators have long been intrigued by the Fear Factory's eerie history. Some believe that Abraham Mortimer's spirit still haunts the building, angry at those who trespass in his old workshop. Others think the attraction itself, by feeding on fear night after night, has created a kind of psychic energy, a place that amplifies the emotions of everyone who enters. During the quieter months, when the attraction closes for maintenance, workers report hearing unexplained noises, tools vanish, and strange cold spots linger even in the middle of summer. One worker claimed he was alone in the building when he heard the sound of hammering coming from the lower level. When he went to investigate, the noise stopped. He turned to Levon. The hammering began again, louder this time, echoing through the floorboards beneath him. Even the infamous chicken list, a wall that displays the names of those who gave up midway, has taken on a strange mythology of its own. Some guests say they felt compelled to quit, not because of fear, but because of an overwhelming sense of dread, as if they weren't supposed to be there. A few claimed they felt ill, dizzy, or suffocated, only to recover the moment they stepped outside. Visitors who do make it through often describe the experience as more psychological than visual. The darkness feels alive, pressing in from all sides. Sound becomes distorted. Whispers seem to come from nowhere and everywhere at once. Some corridors feel endless, while others force guests to crawl or squeeze through narrow spaces, triggering primal fears of confinement. Occasionally, a faint light appears ahead, offering relief only for it to vanish as soon as you move toward it. Despite her, perhaps because of its unnerving reputation, Nightmare's Fear Factory has become a legend. It holds Guinness World Records for being one of the most successful and long-running haunted attractions in the world. Celebrities, thrill-seekers, and ghost hunters alike have braved its halls. Many leave laughing, relieved to have survived. But even those who mock the experience often admit to one thing: the feeling doesn't leave you right away. There's something about the air inside that clings to you long after you've stepped back into the bright Niagara Falls streets. Some guests claim to see movement in the windows as they leave a flicker of a man's shadow pacing along the upper floor. Others hear faint knocking from inside, even when the attraction is closed. A few locals refuse to walk past the building at night altogether, convinced that the ghost of Abraham Mortimer still roams the halls, watching every new visitor who dares to enter his domain. Psychologists who study fear say that Nightmare's Fear Factory is a masterclass in sensory manipulation. By depriving guests of sight, it forces their imaginations to run wild. Every sound, every brush of air, every creak of the floor becomes amplified. The brain fills in the blanks with its own terrors. But even science can't explain everything. Too many people have felt touches that left faint marks, or heard voices calling their names in the dark. Over time, the legend of the Fear Factory has taken on a life of its own. The attraction's creators have never confirmed whether any of the ghost stories are true, preferring to let visitors decide for themselves. Yet employees still leave offerings: a small coin or trinket, an old wooden beam near the back of the building, said to be the site where Mortimer died. It's a quiet gesture of respect, a way of keeping the peace. At night, when the fog from Niagara Falls drifts through the streets and the wind rattles the old windows, the Fear Factory takes on an even more ominous presence. The red glow of its sign cuts through the mist like a warning: enter if you dare. For most, it's a thrilling test of courage. For others, it's something deeper: brush with whatever still lingers inside the walls of the old coffin factory. And whether you make it through or not, one thing is certain: when you leave, part of your fear stays behind.
In the heart of Fort Worth, Texas, where the hum of city life meets the whispers of forgotten industry, stands a building that seems to breathe on its own. Once a sprawling meatpacking plant, it has been reborn into something far more sinister: cutting-edge haunted house. One of the most intense and acclaimed haunted attractions in the world. Those who step inside are warned. This is not a simple maze of monsters and strobe lights. It is a psychological gauntlet, a dark carnival of fear that tests the limits of the human mind. The building itself looms over East Lancaster Avenue like a sleeping giant of steel and brick. In daylight, it looks like a relic of Fort Worth's industrial age massive. windowless structure that still bears the scars of its former life. But when night falls and the floodlights flicker on, the air changes. The line outside stretches down the block, filled with nervous laughter, trembling hands, and the low rumble of anticipation. Inside, the ghosts of the past seem to stir, long before it became the most infamous haunted house in America. This structure was part of the Swift meat-packing plant, built in the early 1900s. For decades, it processed livestock on a massive scale. The sound of machinery, the cries of animals, and the metallic scent of blood once filled these walls. Workers told stories of strange accidents, of shadows moving on the catwalks after hours, of machinery starting up on its own, of a cold presence that watched from the corners. By the 1980s, the plant was abandoned, left to decay in silence. In 1991, a group of horror enthusiasts saw potential in the desolate building. They wanted to create an experience that would go beyond the traditional haunted house place, where fear felt real. They kept the building's industrial character, turning its labyrinth of conveyor belts, tunnels, and cold storage rooms into a multi-story maze of terror. They called it Cutting Edge Haunted House, a name that paid homage both to the knives of its past and to its modern ambition to push horror to its limits. The moment guests enter, they're swallowed by darkness and sound. The air feels damp, heavy, alive with faint vibrations from the machinery that still stands, rusted and silent. The journey begins with a descent into the factory's lower levels, where flickering lights reveal walls lined with hooks, chains, and ghostly remnants of its industrial days. In one infamous section, guests walk past an old conveyor system repurposed to display mannequins' human forms, hanging upside down, drenched in artificial blood, slowly gliding through a crimson mist. It's a nod to the building's grim history, and it never fails to unsettle even the bravest visitors. But what sets Cutting Edge apart isn't just its visuals, it's the way it plays with your senses. The attraction spans over half a mile of twisting hallways, catwalks, and narrow corridors that seem to close in the farther you go. At every turn, fog fills your lungs, and sound surrounds you from every direction, chains clanking, distant screams, the low growl of something that sounds almost human. The boundary between what's real and what's staged begins to blur. Actors, clad in grotesque costumes and coated in grime, appear suddenly from hidden panels or drop from the rafters. They don't simply shout or lunge, they whisper, follow, and vanish. Some move through the crowd silently, their pale faces inches from your own before melting back into the dark. The entire building becomes a living organism, reacting to every step, every heartbeat. One of the most infamous features of Cutting Edge is its use of disorientation. Hallways tilt slightly. Floors vibrate beneath your feet. In one section, guests must squeeze through an inflatable tunnel so tight that even the air feels heavy. In another, strobe lights flash in slow motion, creating the illusion that time itself has fractured. Many who enter lose all sense of direction and emerge hours later unsure of how much time has passed. Guinness World Records has recognized Cutting Edge multiple times as the longest walk-through haunted attraction in the world. It takes most visitors more than an hour to make it through from start to finish, a relentless marathon of fear that leaves people gasping for breath by the end. Some don't finish at all. Staff members quietly confirm that every season, a number of guests beg to be let out, early overwhelmed not by what they see, but by what they feel. What's remarkable, though, is that beneath the layers of staged horror, the real-life history of the building seeps through. Workers who helped renovate it have reported strange experiences that were never part of the show. Tools vanish and reappear in odd places. Cold drafts sweep through sealed rooms. Footsteps echo on the catwalks long after the actors have gone home. Security cameras occasionally pick up movement in areas known to be empty. Several paranormal investigation teams have spent nights inside the building after hours. They've recorded unexplained sounds, metal scraping, faint voices, and the steady rhythm of footsteps pacing above them. Some claim to have captured shadow figures moving between the old machinery, while others report that their equipment malfunctions near the original slaughterhouse section. Employees have their own stories. One veteran actor recalled a night when he was stationed alone in a corridor meant to scare guests with sudden jumps. Between groups, he heard someone whisper his name. Thinking it was a co-worker, he called back, but no one answered. Moments later, he felt a cold hand on his shoulder. When he turned around, the hallway was empty. Despite, or perhaps because of these occurrences, the haunted house continues to thrive. Every year, new sets and effects are added, each one more elaborate than the last. But the spirit of the original building never fades. Some visitors insist that the old energy, the echoes of the slaughterhouse, still inhabit the space. What makes Cutting Edge so uniquely terrifying is that it doesn't need to invent fear, it simply amplifies what's already there. The atmosphere feels charged, as though the walls themselves remember every scream, every jolt of adrenaline, every drop of fear that has passed through. And when the crowds leave at the end of the night, the silence that follows feels almost sentient. Outside, the air of Fort Worth feels lighter. The bright streetlights and the distant sound of traffic remind visitors they've returned to the world of the living. But for many, the images linger: the darkness, the cold machinery, the whisper that seemed too close to be part of the show. Cutting Edge Haunted House isn't just an attraction, it's a transformation of space and memory, where the industrial past and human fear intertwine. It's a place where imagination and history overlap so seamlessly that no one is quite sure where one ends and the other begins. Those who visit leave with their hearts pounding, their minds racing, and one unsettling question. If fear can feel so real in a haunted house built for entertainment, then what else might be lurking within those walls after the lights go out and the screams have faded? The old factory waits quietly for the next night, two follets, rusted bones humming softly, as if alive, as if remembering.
In the heart of Pontiac, Michigan, amid aging brick buildings and the lingering scent of the city's industrial past, there stands a structure that defies logic and reason, a towering labyrinth known as Erebus Haunted Attraction. It rises from the street like a sleeping beast, its concrete frame unassuming by day but transformed by night into one of the most terrifying haunted experiences in America. Inside its walls, fear is an art form, and those who enter find themselves trapped in a living nightmare that spans for relentless stories of darkness. Erebus did not begin as a house of horrors. The building itself was once a multi-level parking garage, cold and utilitarian, forgotten when the downtown area declined. In the late 1990s, brothers Ed and Jim Taribas, lifelong fans of horror and illusion, saw something in the abandoned structure that others couldn't: potential. They envisioned a place that would immerse visitors in fear, not with cheap scares, but through an experience that would blur the line between reality and nightmare. They spent years designing, constructing, and wiring the massive interior, transforming concrete corridors into winding passages of dread. When Erebus Haunted Attraction opened its doors in 2000, it wasn't just another haunted house. It was a sprawling, four-story descent into the underworld of fear. Named after the primordial darkness of Greek mythology, Erebus, the shadowy realm between Earth and the afterlife. The name was fitting, for those who dared to enter quickly discovered that once the doors shut behind them, the world outside ceased to exist. From the first step inside, the air feels heavy, almost sentient. Fog hangs in the corridors like breath, and the low hum of unseen machinery vibrates through the walls. The first level lures guests in with a deceptive maze of narrow hallways where the lighting flickers unpredictably. Shadows dance across the floor, and every few seconds, a sound, a creak, a whisper, a metallic thud draws attention to the darkness just beyond sight. The creators of Erebus engineered their scares, not simply to startle, but to trap. They wanted guests to feel powerless. At one point, visitors must push through a room that seems to collapse in on itself, walls closing tighter, air growing thinner, forcing them to fight for every inch of movement. Another section features a pit of foam that swallows guests up to their shoulders, leaving them flailing as creatures emerge from the shadows. Every scenario was meticulously designed to provoke not just fear, but panic, the kind of primal, instinctive terror that triggers the body's fight-or-flight response. It's that psychological edge that made Erebus world-famous. In 2005, Guinness World Records officially named it the longest walk-through haunted attraction in the world, a title it held for several years. But it wasn't just the length that impressed visitors. It was the intensity. For more than half an hour, guests navigate an unbroken series of horrifying encounters that blend animatronics, live actors, and environmental illusions, so realistic that even skeptics have stumbled out trembling. One of Erebus's signature features is its ability to touch, not in a dangerous or inappropriate way, but through the clever use of mechanisms designed to brush, grab, or restrain. Guests have reported feeling cold hands on their ankles, fingers brushing against their necks, or unseen entities tugging at their clothing. Some sections deploy blasts of air that mimic the sensation of movement behind you, while others use temperature drops and vibrations to make the walls seem alive. The effect is disorienting and overwhelming, designed to convince you that the building itself is conscious. The second and third levels amplify this descent into madness. Visitors encounter scenes that seem to warp time and space, rooms that tilt, floors that sink, and corridors that stretch into infinity. In one room, a flicker of light reveals a towering animatronic beast lunging from the shadows, only for the lights to go out before you can see where it went. In another, guests must navigate a maze of mirrors where distorted reflections move independently, following you even when you're still. Every season, the Taribas brothers reinvent parts of Erebus, adding new rooms, new illusions, and new horrors. Yet, through all its iterations, one constant remains: the building itself seems to hold an energy that goes beyond theatrical effects. Employees, maintenance staff, and even paranormal investigators have reported strange occurrences when the lights are off and the crowds are gone. Security cameras sometimes flicker with motion after hours, capturing shadows where no one stands. Props move overnight, heavy doors swing shut on their own. And a few workers claim to have heard voices calling their names in the dark. Some attribute it to overwork and imagination, but others whispered that the attraction's name may have awakened something within its walls. After all, Erebus is not just a mythic name, it's a place of darkness between worlds, where lost souls wander. One story often shared among employees tells of a worker locking up one night when he heard heavy footsteps coming from the second floor. Thinking someone was still inside, he shouted, but there was no reply. He climbed the stairs, flashlight trembling in his hand, and found nothing, only a faint smell of ozone in the air, and a single prop swinging gently, as though someone had brushed past it moments earlier. The security footage later showed a dark figure moving across the hallway, but when the lights turned on, it vanished. Visitors, too, have reported sensations that seem to cross the line from illusion to something unexplainable. Some say they've heard voices whispering their names through the static of the sound system. Others claim to have seen shadows that move even when the strobe lights are still. A few have left the building mid-tour, insisting they felt something follow the unseen presence that lingered even after they stepped into the parking lot. Whether these experiences are tricks of the mind or something far more real, Erebus thrives on that uncertainty. It doesn't just scare you, it makes you question what fear truly is. Every creak, every whisper, every flicker of shadow feels deliberate, yet somehow alive. The building's industrial past, its concrete skeleton, and the lingering scent of rust give the experience a weight that feels authentic. By the time visitors emerge, they are drenched in sweat, hearts racing, eyes wide. Many laugh nervously, trying to convince themselves it was all an act, but others leave in silence, glancing back at the towering facade that looms against the Michigan sky, wondering if they left a part of themselves inside. Over the years, Erebus has become more than a haunted attraction. It has become a legend. Its name is whispered with both awe and dread, a place where thrill-seekers and skeptics alike come to test their limits. Yet behind the clever design and theatrical effects, something older seems to pulse within those walls of darkness that feeds on fear itself. When the lights shut off at the end of the night, Erebus stands silent once more. The fog dissipates, the actors remove their masks, and the city quiets. But in the concrete depths, where shadows cling and echoes linger, the darkness waits patiently for the next night, the next scream, the next scream, the next soul brave or foolish enough to enter its realm. For, in Erebus, fear is not just experienced, it's alive. Just 40 miles north of the bustling streets of New York City, nestled in the quiet outskirts of Monroe, New York, lies a place designed to test the very limits of human fear. Pure terror, Scream Park. To the casual observer, it may appear as a simple seasonal attraction, a Halloween diversion for thrill-seekers looking to escape the routine of everyday life. But for those who step inside, Pure Terror is much more than that. It is an all-encompassing journey into darkness, dread, and psychological terror, carefully crafted to push visitors to the edge of their courage. Pure Terror is not a single haunted house. It is a sprawling complex made up of 10 separate haunted attractions, each designed with its own theme, set, and brand of horror. Visitors move from one terrifying experience to the next, navigating a landscape of fear so vast that it has earned a place in the Guinness World Records as one of the longest haunted houses in the world. The park's creators, a team of dedicated horror enthusiasts, designed it with one goal in mind: to immerse guests completely in an environment where terror feels real, inescapable, and personal. The history of Pure Terror Scream Park is rooted in the vision of a man named Steve, who was fascinated by haunted attractions from a young age. As a child, he would tour the scariest Halloween attractions in New York, always searching for the ones that left him breathless with fear. Over time, he dreamed of building something unprecedented, a place where horror would not be limited by space, budget, or imagination. After years of planning, the Monroe property was purchased, and the first foundations were laid in the early 2000s. What began as a single haunted house eventually expanded into a massive park of interwoven terror. Each attraction meticulously designed to overwhelm the senses and create an almost cinematic experience of fear. The first attraction visitors enter is the Haunted Woods, a dark forest of gnarled trees, fog, and eerie sounds. Even during daylight, the entrance exudes a foreboding presence. But once the sun sets, the woods transform. Hidden actors leap from behind twisted trunks, skeletal figures rise from fog banks, and distant screams echo through the trees. Guests report the sensation of being watched from every angle, a fear so primal it feels almost instinctive. From there, visitors move on to the asylum, a multi-level attraction designed to evoke the claustrophobic terror of a decaying mental institution. Dim lights flicker over peeling walls, and the air is thick with the smell of damp concrete and industrial smoke. Patients' screams, punctuated by the distant wail of an unseen siren, fill the corridors. Actors in tattered straitjackets stalk the hallways, whispering unsettling things that seem to echo directly inside the visitor's mind. Some report feeling cold hands brush their shoulders, or the sudden weight of unseen eyes upon them. One of the most notorious sections of pure terror is Slaughterhouse, a tribute to the industrial decay that feeds modern horror. This attraction features an immersive set designed to mimic an abandoned meatpacking plant, with rusty chains, dripping hooks, and flickering fluorescent lights. Guests encounter actors who move with uncanny precision, hiding in shadows only to emerge at the exact moment of maximum fright. The designers go to great lengths to create psychological tension. Doors slam unexpectedly. Floors creak as if something is walking just behind you, and air bursts simulate the passage of something unseen. The park continues with attractions such as the Vampire's Lair, Zombie Apocalypse, and the Haunted Hotel, each with its own terrifying environment and interactive scares. What sets pure terror apart is the level of detail in its design. Props are crafted with meticulous care, animatronics are seamlessly integrated, and actors are trained to respond in real time to guest reactions. Every element is calibrated to make fear feel personal, to make the visitor believe for a fleeting moment that the horror they see is real. Despite its theatrical nature, many visitors claim that something unusual lingers in the park. Reports of shadows moving in areas supposedly unstaffed, whispers when no actors are present, and sudden drops in temperature are common. Some guests insist they felt invisible hands brush their skin or heard footsteps behind them when no one else was nearby. Whether these are the product of adrenaline and imagination or something more supernatural, the stories add to pure terror's legendary reputation. The Guinness World Record for the park's length only hints at the intensity of the experience. Walking through all 10 attractions can take several hours, each one layered upon the next in a continuous chain of escalating terror. For many, the end of the park offers relief, but also a lingering adrenaline-fueled awareness that the fear they experienced has not fully left them. The memories of whispered voices, sudden touches, and fleeting shadows remain vivid long after leaving the property. Staff members have their own accounts. Some say they hear unexplained sounds when the park is closed, metal scraping, faint laughter, or the low hum of machinery in areas where no equipment exists. Maintenance crews occasionally report tools disappearing, only to reappear in locations that make no sense. Some former employees speak of the sensation of being watched, even in completely dark, empty sections of the park. While these stories are never officially verified, they contribute to the aura of pure terror as a place where fear feels alive. The park's success lies not only in its size, but in its philosophy. Fear should be immersive, multisensory, and relentless. By combining lighting, sound, tactile effects, and psychological triggers, the creators have turned a haunted attraction into an experience that challenges every visitor's limits. It is a space where imagination and reality collide, where the mind fills in unseen horrors with terrifying precision. Pure Terror Scream Park has grown into a landmark of horror in the United States. Every year, thrill seekers, horror enthusiasts, and skeptics travel from across the country and, even internationally, to test themselves inside its walls. Some arrive with bravado and leave shaken, while others abandon the experience midway, overwhelmed by the intensity. Regardless of outcome, everyone emerges with a sense of having walked through a place where fear is tangible and ever-present. As night falls over Monroe, the park's shadowed silhouette becomes a beacon for the brave or foolish enough to enter. Fog drifts through the trees, red lights glow in the distance, and the faint sounds of screams and laughter carry on the wind. Pure Terror Scream Park stands as a testament to the power of fear, a place where every corner hides something unseen. Every sound threatens the imagination, and every step tests the limits of courage. Inside, the darkness waits patiently, welcoming each new visitor into its carefully crafted nightmare. In the quiet farmland of Mountville, Pennsylvania, where rows of corn stretch toward the horizon, a very different kind of harvest takes place every autumn. When night falls and the air turns crisp, the fields come alive with screams, literal ones. This is Field of Screams, one of the most iconic haunted attractions in the United States. What began as a simple Halloween event on a family farm has grown into a sprawling landscape of terror, blending haunted houses, dark forest trails, hayrides, and deeply immersive horror experiences that leave visitors shaken long after they leave. Field of Screams was founded in 1993 by brothers Gene and Jim Schaff, who grew up on the same farm where the attraction stands today. The idea began modestly, a haunted hayride that wound through their family's fields. But what started as a fun seasonal project quickly became something much larger. The brothers' passion for creating fear evolved year after year, and soon they began building permanent structures, designing elaborate sets, and recruiting actors who could transform simple scares into living nightmares. Today, Field of Screams covers more than 35 acres, offering 4 main attractions and countless smaller experiences. The site has earned national acclaim for its creativity, realism, and its ability to blend classic Halloween thrills with intense psychological horror. Every inch of the property is crafted with meticulous detail, ensuring that guests never quite know what's real and what's part of the show. The first and perhaps most famous attraction is the Haunted Hayride, a chilling journey through the dark countryside. Visitors climb aboard a tractor-pulled wagon and are taken deep into the fields, where towering cornstalks close in on all sides. The night air is heavy with fog and the scent of damp earth, broken only by the crackle of firelight and the echo of distant screams. Along the route, scenes unfold with cinematic precision: abandoned cabins, derailed trains, fields of scarecrows that move when you least expect it. The actors interact with the wagons, climbing aboard or leaping from the shadows, making sure no one feels safe, even for a moment. Next comes Den of Darkness, the oldest and most iconic of the haunted houses. Built inside a 3-story barn, it feels like entering another world, a decaying mansion filled with the restless spirits of its former inhabitants. Inside, the air grows colder, the walls seem to close in, and visitors find themselves surrounded by an overwhelming symphony of sounds, whispers, chains dragging across floors, doors slamming in the distance. The design draws inspiration from Gothic horror, with winding corridors, flickering chandeliers, and elaborate set pieces that blur the line between illusion and reality. Each room tells part of a larger story about the house's cursed history, creating a sense of continuity and depth rarely seen in haunted attractions. Then there's Frightmare Asylum, a grotesque descent into madness, where sanity is the first casualty. This attraction immerses guests in a crumbling hospital for the deranged, staffed by patients and doctors who have long since lost their minds. The rooms are filled with surgical tools, blood-smeared walls, and the constant hum of buzzing lights. Actors lunge from hidden compartments, whisper in your ear, and chase you through hallways thick with smoke. What makes Frightmare Asylum so unsettling is not just the jump scares, but the feeling that you, VEA, entered a place where chaos has become routine, where logic no longer applies. Beyond the buildings lies Nocturnal Wasteland, a massive outdoor trail that winds through woods and ravines. Here, darkness itself becomes a weapon. The trail leads visitors across rickety bridges, past rusted vehicles, and through twisted metal tunnels. Fire barrels flicker in the distance, casting shadows that move unnaturally. Every corner hides a new terror creatures crawling from the brush, figures that blend into the trees until they're inches from your face. The natural environment of Pennsylvania's farmland adds an authenticity that no set could replicate. The crunch of leaves underfoot and the cool wind on your neck remind you that this horror exists in the open world, not safely behind walls. Field of Screams is more than a collection of attractions. It's a living, breathing horror experience powered by an enormous cast and crew. The attention to detail is staggering. Professional-grade prosthetics, realistic soundscapes, and lighting effects that make even the familiar feel uncanny. The team designs new scenes every year, ensuring that even returning guests never know what to expect. But the park's power doesn't come from spectacle alone. What truly sets Field of Screams apart is its ability to tell stories through its scares. Each attraction has its own narrative thread, and visitors are not merely spectators, they are participants. Whether it's uncovering the secrets of the Den of Darkness or surviving the twisted experiments inside the asylum, guests become part of the horror itself. This storytelling approach keeps the fear lingering long after the experience ends, because the terror feels personal. Over the years, Field of Screams has built a reputation for pushing the boundaries of what a haunted attraction can be. It has been featured on television and in documentaries, praised for its production value and creativity. Yet, despite its fame, it retains a homegrown authenticity, rooted in the farmland where it all began. The juxtaposition of rural serenity and industrial-scale horror gives it a unique identity. One moment, you are surrounded by the peaceful quiet of the Pennsylvania countryside, and the next you're plunged into chaos. There are stories, of course, about strange happenings when the park is closed. Staff members have spoken of eerie noises coming from empty buildings, doors swinging open on their own, and shadowy figures glimpsed just beyond the lights. Some believe the land itself carries echoes of the fear that has filled it for decades. Whether those stories are part of the legend or something more, they add to the mystique that surrounds the park. Every fall, as the harvest moon rises and fog rolls across the fields, thousands of visitors flock to Mountville to test their courage. The night is filled with distant screams, laughter, and the rumble of tractors moving through the dark. The Sharp brothers' dream, born from a simple love of Halloween, has become a world-renowned symbol of American haunted attractions, a place where fear is both an art and a celebration. Field of Screams stands as a testament to the enduring power of horror to thrill, unite, and transform. It's a place where nightmares take shape under flickering lights, where imagination and terror intertwine, and where, for one long night, every visitor becomes a character in a story they'll never forget. For those brave enough to enter, it's not just an attraction, it's an experience that feels alive, pulsing with the energy of every scream that's ever echoed across those haunted Pennsylvania fields. In the heart of Salt Lake City, Utah, just off 1300 South, stands a looming structure that commands attention, dark, castle-like, and unsettling even in daylight. Locals know it well. It's not a relic of some medieval past, but the home of Nightmare on 13th, one of America's longest-running and most elaborate haunted attractions. Behind its fortress-like facade lies a labyrinth of horror, a place where fear has been carefully designed, engineered, and perfected for over 3 decades. The story of Nightmare on 13th begins in 1990, when the building was still remembered for its former life as a car dealership. What began as a small, seasonal event called Institute of Terror soon grew beyond anyone's expectations. The name changed, the scares evolved, and the attraction expanded, both in physical size and in reputation. Today, it's a 36,000-square-foot monument to fear, filled with towering animatronics, professional actors, cinematic set designs, and a soundscape so immersive that visitors forget they're in the middle of a city. From the outside, the building itself feels like something torn from a Gothic dream, complete with turrets, gargoyles, and stone-textured walls. At night, colored lights and fog transform it into something alive, pulsing with energy. Visitors line up outside, their nervous laughter echoing against the facade, while monstrous figures patrol the grounds, silently stalking the queue. For first-timers, the intimidation begins long before they step through the doors. Once inside, the transformation is immediate. Gone is the sense of being in a city. Instead, guests find themselves plunged into a cinematic nightmare. Nightmare on 13th is not a simple haunted house. It's a complex series of worlds, each more elaborate than the last. Every year, the attraction is reimagined with new themes, new rooms, and new horrors. One moment, you're walking through a cursed cathedral filled with chanting monks. The next, you're in a decaying hospital where flickering lights reveal flashes of something moving, something that shouldn't be there. The Institute of Terror, a nod to the attraction's original name, remains one of the most famous sections inside. It's a maze of industrial corridors, laboratories, and containment chambers. Alarms blare as distorted voices echo over loudspeakers, warning of escaped test subjects. Lights flicker, revealing glimpses of creatures, half human, half something else, stalking the hallways. The air is heavy with the scent of metal and ozone, and the constant mechanical hum gives the impression that the building itself is alive and watching. But the Institute is only one part of the sprawling nightmare. Another area might throw visitors into a derelict swamp, complete with fog-shrouded bridges, animatronic reptiles, and the distant croak of unseen creatures. Elsewhere, guests might stumble into a crumbling cathedral where ghostly figures float beneath stained glass windows that seem to bleed light. There are dungeons, graveyards, abandoned carnivals, and even apocalyptic cityscapes, each rendered with an artist's attention to texture and atmosphere. Every corridor hides motion sensors, pneumatic props, and special effects timed to the rhythm of each guest's fear. The design of the attraction is a masterclass in misdirection. Ceilings that drop suddenly, floors that shift underfoot, and walls that seem to breathe. The team behind Nightmare on 13th constantly experiments with psychological triggers, ensuring that even seasoned horror fans are caught off guard. The use of lighting and sound is especially effective. Low rumbles vibrate through the floor as eerie whispers seem to follow visitors from room to room. Sometimes it's not what you see, but what you hear, a child's laughter from behind a wall, or a faint heartbeat that grows louder as you approach the next door. The creators of Nightmare on 13th understand that real fear isn't just in the monsters that jump out at you. It's in the anticipation, the subtle manipulation of your senses, and the realization that there's no escape except forward. Actors play a crucial role in the attraction's success. Each performer undergoes specialized training in timing, physicality, and improvisation. They know when to appear and when to vanish, when to scream and when to whisper. Many of them return year after year, becoming legends among regular visitors. Some play recurring characters, twisted doctors, ghostly nuns, or monstrous clowns that have become part of the attraction's mythology. Their goal isn't just to scare, but to immerse, making each guest feel as though they've stepped into their own horror film. Outside of the October season, the building takes on new lives. Nightmare on 13th often transforms into themed off-season events, including a Christmas nightmare filled with demonic elves and dark winter magic, or special Valentine's haunts designed to blend romance and terror in equally unsettling ways. Each version reuses the core structure but dresses it in entirely new nightmares, keeping the experience fresh for return visitors. What's particularly fascinating about Nightmare on 13th is how it balances technology with old-school craftsmanship. Every monster, set, and effect is handmade, designed in-house by artists and engineers who live for this kind of work. Costumes are tailored, masks are sculpted, and even the smell in each room is carefully chosen to fit the scene, from rotting wood to burning rubber. Over the years, the team has developed proprietary scare techniques that blend theatrical illusions with robotics and digital projection, earning them multiple awards and national recognition. Despite being a constructed experience, stories persist about strange things happening inside when the lights go out. Crew members have spoken about hearing footsteps in empty corridors or voices calling their names when they were alone. Some even claim that the building, with its long history and countless hours of fear, has developed its own energy, as if all the screams, adrenaline, and emotion have soaked into the walls, giving it a strange pulse of its own. Whether true or not, those rumors only deepen the attraction's legend. Nightmare on 13th's longevity is no accident. It has survived decades of changing tastes in horror because it understands the essence of fear, that it evolves. The designers don't rely on the same tricks every year. Instead, they adapt, studying what frightens people today and reimagining it for tomorrow. Their passion for horror is evident in every hallway, every sound cue, and every fleeting glimpse of something lurking just beyond the light. For many in Utah and beyond, visiting Nightmare on 13th has become a yearly ritual, a test of courage, a tradition that marks the beginning of Halloween season. Families, thrill-seekers, and horror enthusiasts line up for hours, all for a few minutes of sheer panic. And when they finally stumble back into the night, hearts racing, laughter mixing with gasps, they often find themselves already planning a return. From its humble beginnings as a haunted garage to its evolution into a world-renowned attraction, Nightmare on 13th has earned its reputation as one of the premier haunted experiences in America. It's not just a place you visit, it's a place that consumes you. Once you step through its doors, reality dissolves, replaced by a living nightmare that crawls under your skin and stays there long after you've escaped. And in Salt Lake City, as the lights dim on 1300 South, that nightmare waits patiently for the next brave soul to walk through its gates. In the heart of Philadelphia stands a structure that commands both awe and unease, the Eastern State Penitentiary. One of the most historically significant and chilling buildings in the United States. Its massive stone walls and fortress-like towers rise against the skyline, embodying centuries of darkness, despair, and stories that refuse to die. Once a model for prison reform, it has since become a place where echoes of the past seem to linger, a haunting reminder of human suffering and punishment gone too far. When it opened in 1829, Eastern State Penitentiary was unlike any other prison in the world. Designed by architect John Haviland, it introduced the concept of solitary confinement as a method of rehabilitation rather than punishment. Inmates were kept isolated in individual cells, forbidden from speaking, singing, or even seeing another person. The goal was for each prisoner to sit in silence and reflect upon their sins, achieving penitence, hence the term penitentiary. But what was intended as moral reform quickly devolved into psychological torment. Prisoners were confined to tiny, dimly lit cells for 23 hours a day. Meals were passed through small openings, and even guards wore felted shoes to muffle their steps, ensuring complete silence. The only light came through a narrow skylight, known as the Eye of God, meant to remind inmates that divine judgment watched from above. In practice, it was a reminder of their isolation and hopelessness. Over the decades, countless prisoners suffered mental breakdowns. Some reportedly went mad from the solitude. Others took their own lives. Whispers began to circulate among guards and inmates alike. Whispers of figures moving in empty corridors, distant sobbing, and the sensation of being watched by unseen eyes. Even after the solitary system was abandoned in the late 1800s, the reputation for misery clung to the prison's cold stone halls. Eastern State housed some of the nation's most notorious criminals, including Al Capone. When Capone was incarcerated there in 1929, he was given a surprisingly comfortable cell, complete with furniture, fine rugs, and even a radio. But even the powerful gangster couldn't escape the prison's strange energy. Guards claimed he often woke screaming in the night, insisting that he was being haunted by the ghost of James Clark, one of the men killed in the St. Valentine's Day massacre. By the mid-20th century, Eastern State had fallen into disrepair. The once grand halls had become overrun with decay, vines creeping through cracks in the walls, and the echoes of 1,000 broken lives reverberating through the empty cells. It officially closed in 1971, its doors sealed, and its prisoners transferred elsewhere. For years, it sat abandoned, a hulking skeleton of its former self, until preservation efforts in the 1990s reopened it to the public. Today, It stands as both a historical landmark and one of the most haunted sites in America. Visitors describe a suffocating sense of unease as soon as they cross the threshold. The air feels heavier inside, and the silence carries a strange charge, as though the building itself remembers the suffering that took place within its walls. Ghost hunters, paranormal investigators, and curious tourists alike have flocked to Eastern State, drawn by tales of the supernatural. One of the most infamous locations inside is Cell Block 12, where visitors often report echoing footsteps, ghostly laughter, and shadowy figures darting in and out of the cells. Others have heard disembodied voices whispering from the corners, calling out names or repeating fragments of prayers. Cell Block 4 is another hotspot for activity. Many guests have claimed to see a tall, shadowy figure pacing slowly through the hallway, only to vanish when approached. The infamous lockdown corridor, used for solitary confinement punishment, is especially oppressive, narrow, pitch black, and thick with the weight of despair. Some say the temperature drops abruptly as you walk through, and faint cries echo from the cells, as if the inmate's anguish still clings to the air. Security guards working night shifts tell stories of hearing cell doors slam shut on their own, or catching glimpses of glowing figures in the guard towers. Others describe hearing distant chains dragging along the floor when no one else is inside. Even professional investigators, equipped with cameras and recording devices, have captured chilling evidence, electronic voice phenomena, sudden cold spots, and unexplainable flashes of light. One of the most well-known reports comes from a maintenance worker in the 1990s who was repairing a door in Cell Block 4. He claimed to see a spectral face appear in the cell before the door suddenly slammed shut. The worker ran out and refused to return. Years later, visitors still say they feel a presence there, something watching, waiting, and unwilling to be forgotten. During the Halloween season, Eastern State transforms into terror behind the walls, a massive haunted attraction that draws thousands of thrill-seekers each year. Actors in elaborate costumes roam the crumbling cell blocks, creating an immersive experience of fear. Yet, amid the staged horrors, many believe that genuine spirits roam alongside the performers, blending fiction and reality in unsettling ways. The energy of Eastern State Penitentiary seems almost alive, a mix of history, emotion, and the unexplainable. Some say the structure itself amplifies the supernatural, its long corridors acting like conduits for residual energy. Others argue that the hauntings are the product of collective memory, the sheer weight of human suffering imprinted into the stones. Whatever the reason, few places in America inspire such a visceral reaction. Standing inside the prison today, the atmosphere is undeniable. The wind howls through broken windows, and sunlight filters in through the shattered roof, casting long, skeletal shadows across the cracked floors. The walls, built to confine, now feel like a living entity, scarred, ancient, and whispering with memory. Visitors often leave with more questions than answers. Was that the echo of footsteps behind them? Did the cold hand brushing their arm belong to the living or the dead? Some leave shaken, others leave changed. Eastern State Penitentiary doesn't just show history, it makes you feel it. More than a century after its construction, it stands as both a monument to punishment and a testament to endurance. The stories of its inmates, their pain, regret, and madness, seem to hang in the air, suspended between worlds. To walk its halls is to walk through time itself, through a place where justice and cruelty once intertwined, where silence screamed louder than words, and where the human soul was tested to its limit. Whether haunted by ghosts or by the memory of what humanity is capable of, Eastern State Penitentiary remains one of the most chilling and unforgettable landmarks in the world. Beneath the bustling streets of St. Louis, Missouri, lies a hidden world, a labyrinth of tunnels and chambers that once pulsed with life, machinery, and the heady scent of brewing beer. Today, those same passages sit in eerie silence, shrouded in darkness and myth. The limp brewery tunnels and the limp mansion above them share a legacy that blurs the line between tragedy and the supernatural. Together, they form one of the most chilling and storied haunts in America, a place where history breathes heavily and whispers echo long after the last footsteps fade away. The story begins in the mid-19th century with Johann Adam Lemp, a German immigrant who brought his brewing craft to St. Louis. His lager, beer, a novelty at the time, gained immense popularity and laid the foundation for the Lemp Brewing Company, an empire that would dominate the American beer market for decades. The brewery's success allowed the family to build an elaborate fortune, complete with a grand home, the now infamous Lemp Mansion, located near the brewery grounds. Beneath the brewery, however, lay its true secret. The site was built over a network of natural limestone caves that stretched deep under the city. These tunnels provided the perfect environment for brewing and storing beer before refrigeration existed. The cool, constant temperature kept the lager crisp and fresh, while ice from the Mississippi River was hauled underground to aid in the process. Over time, the Lemps expanded and shaped the caves, carving out vast vaults and passageways, connecting the brewery to nearby facilities and even to the family mansion itself. By day, the tunnels bustled with workers, rolling barrels, maintaining machinery, and hauling supplies. But as decades passed and tragedy struck the Lemp family again and again, the atmosphere beneath those stone ceilings began to change. The air grew heavier, colder, and filled with an almost tangible sorrow. The Lemp family curse, as many came to call it, began with the death of Johann's son, William Lemp Sr., who took over the brewery after his father's passing. Under his leadership, the company flourished, but in 1901, William's favorite son and heir, Frederick, died unexpectedly at just 28 years old. The loss devastated him. 4 years later, unable to overcome his grief, William Sr. locked himself in his bedroom at the mansion and ended his life with a gunshot. From there, tragedy seemed to settle permanently over the family. In 1920, William Lemp Jr., who had taken control of the business, also shot himself in a mansion in the same house where his father had died. Their sister Elsa, once one of the wealthiest women in St. Louis, died under suspicious circumstances a few years later. Eventually, Charles Lemp, the reclusive younger brother, took his own life in the mansion as well. By the time the last family member died, the brewery was bankrupt, the business dissolved, and the once proud tunnels were left to rot in darkness. But while the brewery above ground fell silent, the tunnels below never truly slept. Locals began whispering about strange happenings beneath the city. Former workers claimed to hear voices echoing through the caverns when no one else was present. Low murmurs that grew louder as one moved deeper underground. The air would suddenly turn icy, and shadowy figures could be seen darting across the far ends of corridors, disappearing before a light could catch them. When urban explorers and historians began revisiting the tunnels decades later, they reported the same sensations. The overwhelming sense of being watched, the faint sound of footsteps behind them, and the feeling that something unseen moved just beyond the edge of their vision. Many described hearing the metallic clang of old machinery still running, even though the equipment had long since rusted away. Some reported the smell of stale beer lingering in the air, a scent that should have faded a century ago. In recent years, the Lemp Brewery tunnels have become a focal point for paranormal investigations. Ghost tours occasionally gain access to certain sections, though the tunnels are largely sealed off for safety. Those lucky or brave enough to enter speak of the oppressive atmosphere that grips you the moment you step inside. The walls, damp and dripping with condensation, seem to absorb sound. Your own breathing echoes back at you, distorted by the curvature of the stone. Even with modern lights, the shadows appear to move, stretching and shifting as though alive. Investigators have captured unsettling evidence within the tunnels, cold spots appearing out of nowhere, EVP recordings of whispered voices, and unexplained electromagnetic fluctuations. Some claim to have seen spectral figures, one of a man in an old brewer's apron, another of a woman dressed in early 1900s clothing, her face pale and hollow. Others have reported encountering the spirit of a child, thought to be Zeke, the rumored illegitimate son of William Lemp Jr., who some stories say was hidden away in the mansion and occasionally brought into the tunnels to play. Though there's no definitive record of the boy, the legend persists, and many believe his spirit remains. wandering the subterranean halls. Above ground, the Lemp Mansion is equally infamous, a beautifully preserved home that doubles as a restaurant, inn, and ghost hunting destination. Guests who stay overnight frequently report slamming doors, flickering lights, and faint crying coming from empty rooms. Some claim to see apparitions of the Lemp family themselves, dressed in period clothing, silently watching from staircases or standing at the end of hallways. The energy of the mansion seems inextricably tied to that of the tunnels below, as if the sorrow that began underground seeped upward through the stone. It's said that the tunnels act as a conduit, a bridge between the living and the dead, where the anguish of the past has been absorbed by the earth itself. The deeper one goes, the heavier the air becomes, until it feels like something unseen is pressing down on your chest. The flicker of a flashlight seems to stretch impossibly far, then vanish into darkness that swallows everything whole. The echo of dripping water sounds like whispered words if you listen too long. And sometimes, people swear they hear music, faint strains of laughter and piano keys, remnants of the lavish brewery parties that once filled the underground halls. Few places in America capture such a perfect blend of history, tragedy, and haunting atmosphere as the Lemp Brewery tunnels and mansion. They stand as reminders that some legacies never truly die, that the weight of loss and despair can sink deep into the earth and refuse to fade. For those who dared to descend into the tunnels during special ghost hunts, the experience is unforgettable. The moment the light fades and silence takes hold, you can feel the presence of something ancient, something watching. Down there, beneath the city, surrounded by stone and shadow, it's easy to believe the stories are true. The Lemps may be gone, but in the cold, damp air of their buried brewery, their ghosts are still at work. In the heart of St. Louis, Missouri, stands a stately brick house with a past as old as the city itself. Known as the Bissell Mansion, this elegant home has long been admired for its classic architecture and historical importance. Yet behind its refined facade lies a much darker legacy, one filled with tragedy, secrets, and ghostly whispers that have earned it a reputation as one of the most haunted homes in America. Built in the early 1820s by Captain Louis Bissell, the mansion was one of the first substantial brick homes in the region, a symbol of wealth and prominence along the Mississippi River. Captain Bissell was a distinguished military officer, known for his service in the War of 1812. When he settled in St. Louis, he chose a bluff overlooking the river to build his family home, a grand estate that would stand as a testament to his status. But as history has shown time and again, even the finest of homes can become shadows of sorrow when time and fate conspire against them. The house was designed in a federal style, symmetrical, refined, and stately. In its early days, the mansion stood alone in what was then the edge of civilization, surrounded by dense woods and open fields. The Mississippi River flowed just beyond the property, and a system of caves and tunnels beneath the bluff connected the home to the riverbanks below. Some believe these underground passages were originally used for storage and cooling. Others suggest they later served darker purposes, smuggling, escape routes, or even secret burials. One section of the cave system beneath the mansion was eventually bricked up, sealed permanently for reasons no one can quite agree on. Over the decades, tragedy struck the Bissell property time and again. Records mention at least 10 deaths connected to the estate, accidents, illness, and even one murder. Some stories speak of a young woman who died in childbirth within the mansion walls, her cries echoing through the halls long after her passing. Others tell of a servant who fell to his death from an upper window while washing panes. The most chilling tale, however, is that of the murder, a violent act that left a permanent mark on the house's energy and gave rise to many of its ghostly legends. As the years passed, the Bissell family's prominence faded, and the house changed hands numerous times. During the 19th century, it served as a residence, a boarding house, and at one point, even a makeshift hospital. Each new occupant left behind fragments of their own stories, and some believe those spirits never left. Visitors and caretakers through the 20th century began reporting strange occurrences, footsteps in empty rooms, cold spots that moved from corner to corner, and doors that opened and shut on their own. The bricked-up cave beneath the mansion became the centerpiece of speculation. Local lore claims that the sealed section hides something sinister, perhaps the remains of a forgotten crime or the final resting place of someone meant to be erased from history. During renovations in the mid-1900s, workers claimed to hear muffled sounds coming from behind the brick wall, like faint tapping or a low, distant moan. When they returned later to continue their work, their tools were moved or missing, though no one else had entered the basement. Out of superstition or fear, the owners decided not to disturb the sealed cave any further. By the late 20th century, the mansion's haunting reputation had grown beyond local gossip. It was featured on HGTV's Scariest Houses in America, where investigators documented cold drafts, flickering lights, and unexplained shadows moving along the staircase. During filming, several crew members experienced technical malfunctions. One camera reportedly lost power every time it was aimed toward the basement door, though batteries worked perfectly elsewhere. Another team member claimed to see a translucent figure standing in the front parlor, a man in an old military coat, staring blankly toward the window before vanishing into thin air. Many believe that apparition is Captain Louis Bissell himself, unable to leave the home he built 2 centuries ago. Witnesses describe a tall man with sharp features, often appearing near the front staircase or pacing along the upper hallway. He's sometimes seen gazing out toward the river, as though still watching over the land that once belonged to him. But the captain isn't the only spirit said to inhabit the mansion. A woman's presence is often felt in the upstairs bedrooms, cold air sweeping through the room even in summer, accompanied by the faint sound of sobbing. Guests have reported hearing a lullaby hummed softly in the dark, and more than one has awoken to the sensation of someone sitting at the edge of the bed. Paranormal investigators suggest she may be the woman who died in childbirth, forever searching for the child she never held. The dining room is another hotspot for activity. Dishes clatter when no one is near, and the aroma of pipe smoke or perfume often lingers suddenly, as though invisible guests have joined for supper. Some nights, the faint sound of conversation has been heard, indistinct voices overlapping, as if a dinner party from centuries past continues unseen. Perhaps the most unnerving accounts come from the basement. Modern visitors describe an immediate sense of dread upon descending the stairs, a feeling of being watched, of unseen eyes following from the dark corners. The air grows colder near the bricked-up wall, and several people have claimed to hear scratching sounds from behind it. One investigator described a deep vibration underfoot, like a heartbeat pulsing through the stone. The sensation vanished as soon as they stepped away. Over the years, psychic mediums have visited the mansion to interpret its energy. Some claim it acts as a spiritual crossroads, where the trauma of death and the weight of history overlap. They describe the mansion as alive, feeding on memory, amplifying emotion, and echoing the tragedies of the past in loops that never end. One medium, after spending a night in the parlor, reportedly fled at dawn, saying she saw a shadowy figure emerge from the fireplace, crossing the room before fading into the wall where the tunnel once connected. Despite its reputation, the Bissell Mansion has found new life as a themed dinner theater, where visitors dine and experience lighthearted mystery plays, a playful nod to the home's darker roots. But even amid laughter and candlelight, staff members acknowledge that strange things still happen. Costumes go missing, stage props are rearranged overnight, and occasionally, guests report feeling someone brush past them when no one is there. The mansion's duality, elegance above, darkness below, gives it an atmosphere unlike any other. It's a place where beauty and tragedy coexist, where time feels porous, and every creak of the floorboards might be a whisper from the past. 200 years after Captain Bissell first laid its foundation, the house still stands proudly, its red brick walls holding centuries of memories. But those who have spent time inside will tell you, the Bissell Mansion never truly sleeps. Its halls hum with unseen energy, its shadows move with purpose, and deep within the bricked-up cave below, something or someone seems to be waiting, forever sealed in silence beneath the house that time forgot. in the quiet countryside of Adams, Tennessee. Nestled along the banks of the Red River lies a piece of land steeped in mystery, fear, and centuries-old legend. Known today as the Bell Witch Farm, this property was the center of one of America's most famous and enduring hauntings, a tale of a malevolent spirit that tormented the Bell family in the early 19th century. The story has been passed down through generations, inspiring books, documentaries, and even Hollywood films. But for those who walk the land today, it is clear that the legend is more than just a story. The haunting began around 1817, when John Bell, a respected farmer and patriarch of a large Tennessee family, reported strange occurrences on his property. At first, there were minor disturbances. Tools mysteriously moved, doors opened or closed on their own, and animals reacted as though sensing an invisible presence. But soon, the activity escalated, and it became impossible to ignore. Objects were thrown across rooms, furniture tipped over, and disembodied voices spoke to the family, sometimes friendly, but often threatening. The spirit, which would become known as the Bell Witch, seemed particularly focused on John Bell and his daughter, Betsy. Witnesses claimed that the witch spoke in a human voice, sometimes engaging in long conversations and answering questions with eerie precision. It would sometimes call out family members by name, predicting events or recounting secrets that it should not have known. This intelligence distinguished the Bell Witch from mere poltergeist activity, giving the legend a psychological depth that has fascinated paranormal investigators for centuries. Betsy Bell, in particular, became the center of the witch's malevolence. Accounts describe her being slapped, pinched, and physically attacked by an invisible force. On several occasions, witnesses reported seeing the witch's shadow or shape, sometimes appearing as a distorted human figure, hovering near her bed at night. Betsy's health declined over time, and some contemporary accounts suggest that the constant torment left her permanently scarred, both physically and emotionally. Visitors to the Bell property during the 19th century described more than just physical attacks. The witch was said to communicate directly with neighbors and travelers, sometimes predicting wars, storms, or personal tragedies. In one story, it allegedly warned a man not to travel to a distant town, and when he ignored the warning, he never returned. Other accounts describe the witch engaging in humorous or teasing behavior, calling people by incorrect names, mimicking their voices, or making strange, mocking noises. This combination of menace and mischievousness made the Bell Witch a phenomenon unlike any other reported in early America. The legend also includes tales of supernatural knowledge and influence. The witch was said to have knowledge of events far from the farm, as well as insights into the Bell family's private affairs. Some accounts claim it could curse individuals, causing illness or misfortune, while others speak of it simply creating fear and confusion. Visitors often left the farm feeling disoriented, convinced that they had experienced a presence that was both intelligent and aware. One of the most chilling elements of the story is the mysterious death of John Bell in 1820. Some reports suggest that the witch claimed responsibility, or at least celebrated his passing, and the timing of his death added a terrifying weight to the legend. His family continued to experience disturbances long after his passing, reinforcing the idea that the Bell Witch was not merely a passing spirit but a persistent force tied to the land itself. The Bell Witch legend has survived for over 200 years because of the depth of its lore and the compelling nature of eyewitness accounts. Historians and folklorists have documented letters, diaries, and newspapers from the period that reference the hauntings, making it one of the most thoroughly recorded cases in American paranormal history. Yet even with historical records, much about the Bell Witch remains unexplained. Was it a spirit? A malevolent force? A combination of human superstition and psychological terror? No one can say for certain, and perhaps that uncertainty is what keeps the legend alive. Today, the Bell Witch Farm and Cave are open to visitors who want to experience the history and mystery firsthand. The property is still largely rural, with fields, wooded areas, and the Red River winding nearby. The cave, which is believed to have been used for rituals or secretive gatherings in the past, adds a claustrophobic and eerie element to the land. Ghost hunters and tourists alike report strange sensations, sudden chills, and even apparitions near the cave's entrance. Some claim to hear whispers in the dark, footsteps behind them, or a sudden sense of being watched, even when alone. During special events, the farm hosts ghost hunts and guided tours, where participants explore areas associated with the haunting, including the cellar, the creekside, and the cave. Many report heightened activity at night, glowing orbs, cold spots, and the feeling of an unseen presence brushing past. While skeptics argue that these sensations are psychological, believers say the land itself seems infused with the Bell Witch's lingering energy, as though time and fear have left a permanent imprint. The story of the Bell Witch has inspired countless retellings, novels, movies, and television specials. But for those who step onto the farm, the experience is immediate and tangible. The sense of isolation, combined with the knowledge of historical events, gives visitors a direct connection to the past. Each gust of wind through the trees, each echo across the fields, seems imbued with a history of fear and fascination that has endured for generations. Whether one believes in spirits or sees the Bell Witch as folklore, the legend persists, because it touches on universal fears, the unknown, the unseen, and the uncontrollable forces that can enter our lives without warning. The farm, the cave, and the surrounding land continue to captivate the imagination, offering a living connection to a haunting that has become embedded in American culture. Walking the Bell Witch farm today, it is easy to feel the weight of centuries pressing down. The land carries echoes of screams, laughter, and whispers that may never fade. The cave yawns like a dark mouth waiting to swallow the unwary. And among the trees and fields, some say the spirit of the Bell Witch still lingers, watching, listening, and reminding anyone who dares enter that some forces cannot be escaped, only respected. For over 200 years, the legend of the Bell Witch has endured, a chilling reminder that sometimes the most terrifying hauntings are the ones that refuse to be forgotten. On this land in Adams, Tennessee, history and the supernatural collide, creating an experience that leaves visitors both fascinated and fearful, and a story that will be whispered for generations to come. In the quiet, rural town of Summertown, Tennessee, there exists a place that redefines the limits of fear and pushes the boundaries of what most people would call entertainment. Known as McCamey Manor, it has gained international notoriety for offering one of the most extreme and controversial haunted experiences in the world. Unlike traditional haunted houses, which rely on jump scares, props, and actors in costume, McCamey Manor blurs the line between fiction and reality, testing the physical, emotional, and psychological endurance of its participants. The attraction is the creation of Russ McCamey, a man whose vision of fear goes far beyond the ordinary. His manor is not designed merely to frighten, but to immerse guests in an intense, often disorienting experience that challenges the very limits of personal tolerance. Those who wish to participate are required to sign a 40-page waiver, acknowledging that the experience could involve extreme stress, confinement, and psychological manipulation. Visitors consent to scenarios that may include physical contact, simulated assaults, sensory deprivation, and moments of intense isolation. The waiver is just the beginning. The true test begins once the doors to the manor open. McCamey Manor has been described by many as torture under the guise of entertainment. It is not a haunted house in the traditional sense, nor a theater of staged frights. Instead, it is a fully immersive, interactive horror experience where actors, set design, and scripted events combine to create a narrative that unfolds uniquely for each participant. The goal is to strip away any sense of safety and control, forcing guests to confront fear in its most raw and personal form. The journey through McCamey Manor can last several hours. Each step is unpredictable. Some participants describe beginning in a dimly lit, maze-like environment, with doors that close unexpectedly and pathways that force them to crawl, squeeze, or navigate tight spaces. Others encounter scenarios that play upon deeply rooted fears, the darkness of isolation, the sensation of being pursued, or the uncertainty of what is real and what is part of the act. The manor relies heavily on psychological terror, manipulating perception and exploiting phobias, leaving guests unsure of when they are being observed or tested. Unlike traditional haunted attractions, the manor does not rely on props alone. Actors are trained to respond dynamically to each participant, escalating tension based on reactions and maintaining an unrelenting atmosphere of uncertainty. Participants have reported being restrained, dragged, or guided through physically challenging environments. Some claim the sensation of physical struggle or confrontation felt frighteningly real, a designed feature meant to test courage and endurance. McCamey Manor's notoriety is fueled not only by its intensity, but also by its strict rules of participation. The experience is limited to adults who voluntarily consent. Yet despite these precautions, stories of extreme reactions abound. Participants have reported emotional breakdowns, panic attacks, and moments of sheer terror. For some, the experience is transformative, a test of resilience and self-awareness. For others, it is deeply disturbing, leaving lasting impressions long after they exit. The line between fear as entertainment and fear as trauma is thin, and McCamey Manor deliberately exists in that space. The physical layout of the manor adds to the sense of disorientation. Unlike conventional haunted houses that guide visitors along a set path, McCamey Manor is a sprawling, labyrinthine environment designed to make guests lose their bearings. Low ceilings, narrow corridors, and pitch-black rooms amplify claustrophobia. Unpredictable sensory effects, sudden noises, cold air blasts, and the shifting of furniture or props ensure that participants are constantly off balance. Even outside observers find it difficult to imagine what occurs within, as each visit is unique, personalized, and secretive. One of the most controversial aspects of McCamey Manor is the level of psychological engagement. Visitors are not passive observers. They are participants in a narrative that unfolds around them. The manor creates situations that force confrontation with fear, guilt, and uncertainty. Some scenarios mimic scenarios of threat or pursuit, while others rely on isolation, deception, or moral choice. The unpredictability keeps participants on edge, with adrenaline sustained over extended periods. It is this intense, unrelenting engagement that sets McCamey Manor apart from any other haunted attraction in the world. Despite its notoriety, McCamey Manor has a devoted following. Those who have completed the experience often describe it as a personal challenge, a test of endurance that pushes them to limits they never imagined. Many return, seeking to confront fear anew, each visit tailored to a different narrative or set of challenges. Social media and news coverage have amplified its reputation, drawing thrill seekers from across the country and around the globe, eager to experience an attraction that promises something far beyond the typical haunted house. Critics, however, have labeled it as extreme and unethical. Concerns about physical safety and psychological trauma have been raised repeatedly. Yet the strict waivers and controlled environment allow the manor to operate legally. Every participant voluntarily enters, aware of the risks, and every aspect of the experience is designed to balance danger with careful oversight. The result is a paradoxical attraction, simultaneously feared, criticized, and revered for the intensity it delivers. McCamey Manor has also influenced the landscape of modern extreme haunt culture. It has challenged traditional notions of what a haunted attraction can be, inspiring other creators to experiment with immersive storytelling, interactivity, and psychological fear. Yet no other attraction has reached the same level of notoriety or controversy. It remains a singular phenomenon, a place where boundaries of horror, consent, and endurance are constantly explored. Visiting McCamey Manor is not for the faint of heart. Even seasoned thrill seekers report being unprepared for the physical and psychological rigor of the experience. But for those who enter, it is more than entertainment. It is a journey into fear itself, a confrontation with the primal anxieties that lie hidden in the human mind. Every corner, every sound, every shadow is part of a meticulously crafted environment designed to test courage, resilience, and the limits of personal endurance. In Summertown, Tennessee, McCamey Manor stands as both a legend and a challenge. It is a place where horror is not merely observed, but lived, felt, and survived. The doors may close behind participants, but the experience lingers long afterward in the memory, in the racing heartbeat, and in the deep understanding of what it means to face fear in its most uncompromising form. McCamey Manor is not just a haunted attraction. It is a trial by terror, a controversial testament to the extremes of immersive horror, and a story that continues to captivate and terrify anyone who dares to enter. Off the coast of Venice, Italy, lies a small, unassuming island with a dark and chilling reputation. Known as Poveglia Island, it is often referred to as one of the most haunted places in Europe, a site shrouded in tragedy, disease, and restless spirits. Though it is not a conventional haunted house, the crumbling sanatorium and abandoned structures on the island create an atmosphere of deep unease, attracting thrill-seekers, paranormal investigators, and the endlessly curious who are drawn to its macabre history. Poveglia's story stretches back centuries. Originally, the island served as a quarantine station for ships entering the Venetian lagoon, particularly during the plague outbreaks of the 18th century. Any ship suspected of carrying disease was forced to dock at Poveglia, and passengers were isolated there, often left to die. It is estimated that tens of thousands of people perished on the island during these periods, their bodies burned or buried hastily to prevent further infection. The bones of the dead, mixed with the soil, are said to have soaked into the very foundation of the island, creating an unsettling sense of death that has never fully lifted. By the early 20th century, the island's reputation shifted from plague-stricken quarantine to psychiatric horror. In 1922, the Poveglia Psychiatric Hospital was established on the site, a facility that would become infamous for its harsh treatment methods and tragic patient stories. During its operation, the hospital was home to hundreds of mentally ill patients, many of whom were confined in small, locked rooms for extended periods. Reports suggest that treatments were often experimental, including electroshock therapy and lobotomies, reflecting the rudimentary and frequently cruel psychiatric practices of the era. The hospital itself quickly became a place of fear and suffering. Patients were reportedly neglected, abused, and sometimes died under mysterious circumstances. The staff, overwhelmed by the growing population and the stigma surrounding mental illness, were said to enforce strict discipline, often isolating patients for weeks at a time. Over time, the combination of death, disease, and human suffering etched itself into the island's reputation, leaving a lingering aura of terror that continues to this day. Many accounts from locals, historians, and paranormal enthusiasts describe strange occurrences on and around Poveglia. Boats approaching the island often report sudden, unnatural fogs rolling in, obscuring vision and creating an eerie sense of disorientation. Visitors have claimed to hear whispers across empty courtyards, footsteps in abandoned hallways, and doors that open or close without explanation. Some say the faint sound of screaming or crying can be heard over the water late at night, as if the anguish of past residents has been trapped on the island. The ruined hospital itself is perhaps the most unnerving location on Poveglia. Its skeletal walls and broken windows allow the wind to whistle through hallways that once confined hundreds of patients. Inside, graffiti from modern explorers mixes with decaying plaster and rusted fixtures, creating a surreal juxtaposition of the living and the dead. Some claim to have seen shadowy figures moving through the upper floors, while others describe sudden drops in temperature, unexplained mists, and feelings of intense anxiety or dread that cannot be explained by the derelict environment alone. Guided night tours occasionally allow limited access to certain areas of the island, though most parts remain strictly off-limits due to their dangerous conditions. Those who have braved these tours often speak of the overwhelming atmosphere of suffering that seems to cling to the stone walls. Some report being touched or brushed by unseen hands, while others experience vertigo or dizziness as they explore the crumbling corridors. The combination of history, isolation, and decay creates a psychological tension that can feel almost tangible. The feeling that the spirits of the island as past residents are still present, watching, waiting, and perhaps unwilling to rest. The stories surrounding Poveglia have only grown with time. Legend has it that a doctor on the island, driven mad by his work and the sheer despair he witnessed daily, eventually committed suicide by jumping from the hospital's bell tower. Others speak of hidden burial pits scattered across the grounds, filled with the bodies of plague victims or forgotten patients. Even today, some locals claim to hear rattling chains or see flickering lights in the distance. Long after sunset, when no one else is present, the island has captured the imagination of writers, filmmakers, and paranormal enthusiasts alike. It has been featured in countless documentaries, books, and online explorations, each emphasizing its reputation as a site where the veil between the living and the dead is thin. For many, the appeal of Poveglia lies in its combination of history and horror. It is a place where human suffering was concentrated over centuries, and where the remnants of that suffering remain, etched into walls, soil, and memory. Approaching the island by boat adds to its chilling mystique, as the silhouette of the abandoned sanatorium rises above the water. Its skeletal frame reflected in the waves, a sense of foreboding settles over visitors. Even in daylight, the island seems suffused with unease, an oppressive atmosphere that makes conversation difficult and heightens awareness of every sound and movement. At night, the effect is amplified. Shadows lengthen, the wind carries strange noises, and the boundary between reality and legend blurs. Poveglia Island remains officially closed to the public, though adventurers, thrill-seekers, and ghost hunters continue to find ways to approach its shores. The combination of history, isolation, and tragedy ensures that the island will never lose its mystique. Even those who cannot set foot on the island feel the pull of its story, imagining the thousands of lives it has touched and the spirits that may still linger. For centuries, Poveglia has been a place of death, fear, and human suffering. The plague victims, the tormented patients, and the countless souls who never left the island alive have left an indelible mark on the land. The Bell Witch of Europe, some say, is the island itself, a reminder that certain places retain the echoes of the past, where memory, tragedy, and the supernatural intertwine. To visit Poveglia is to confront that past, to walk the boundary between history and the unknown, and to feel firsthand the weight of centuries of fear and loss. The ruins of the sanatorium, the sealed tunnels, and the empty courtyards serve as a chilling testament to human suffering, and to the enduring mystery that has made Poveglia Island one of the most haunted and captivating locations in Europe. Those who approach its shores, even by boat, are reminded that some places are not meant to be fully understood, only felt, respected, and feared. In the quiet village of Raya, also known as Santamal, in Goa, India, stands an imposing relic of a bygone era, the Disembodied house. This abandoned mansion, built during the Portuguese colonial period, is a structure that commands attention even in its state of decay. Its faded walls, ornate yet crumbling architecture, and overgrown surroundings hint at a past of wealth, status, and power. But beyond its historical significance, the Disembodied house has become a focal point of ghost stories, folklore, and fear, a place locals whisper about with reverence and caution. The mansion was constructed in the early 20th century by the Disembodied family, one of the prominent Goan Catholic families during the Portuguese regime. The house was designed to impress. High ceilings, grand balconies, arched windows, and intricate tile work adorned the structure. The sprawling estate once featured manicured gardens, fountains, and courtyards where the family entertained guests and celebrated important festivals. From the outside, it symbolized prosperity and prestige, a tangible representation of the family's social and economic standing. However, prosperity was not enough to shield the mansion from tragedy. Over time, the Disembodied family faced misfortune and turmoil that seemed to cling to the estate like a shadow. Accounts vary, but some locals claim that multiple family members met untimely or mysterious deaths. Stories of sudden illnesses, accidents, and unexplained disappearances circulated within the village. The cumulative tragedies gradually emptied the house, leaving it abandoned and slowly succumbing to the elements. It is this combination of history and loss that forms the foundation of the hauntings surrounding the DeMello house. Locals describe a sense of unease that pervades the area, even during the day. Passersby have reported glimpsing figures in the broken windows or hearing the faint sound of footsteps echoing through the empty corridors. Others have claimed to see lights flickering inside rooms when no one is present, or hear muffled conversations that vanish the moment someone investigates. The mansion, silent yet ominous, seems to retain the echoes of its past, as if the walls themselves remember the lives once lived within. One of the most chilling aspects of the DeMello house is the sense of isolation and decay. Overgrown vines and dense vegetation surround the mansion, creating natural barriers that make approach difficult and amplify the feeling of entering a forgotten world. Inside, the air is thick with dust and the scent of damp earth. Wooden floors creak underfoot, ceilings bear cracks from decades of neglect, and decorative moldings crumble into fragments. Every step feels measured, every sound magnified. It is easy to imagine the house as a stage for spectral activity, with shadows and whispers emerging from corners where the light barely reaches. The mansion has attracted the attention of paranormal enthusiasts and thrill-seekers from across Goa and beyond. While official access is limited due to safety concerns, the stories continue to draw attention. Visitors speak of cold drafts that seem unnatural, sudden temperature drops, and the unmistakable feeling of being watched. Some have reported seeing ghostly figures gliding across the main hall, or peeking from the upper balconies, their movements subtle but unmistakable. Others describe hearing crying, laughter, or the sound of a piano playing faintly, remnants of a lifelong past. Local folklore adds further layers to the mansion's haunting. It is said that the spirit of a woman, believed to be a matriarch of the DeMello family, roams the halls, searching endlessly for her children or loved ones. Some believe she died, heartbroken, after the family fortunes waned, while others claim she was a victim of the misfortunes that plagued the house over generations. Villagers also warn of unseen forces that discourage trespassers, making people feel uneasy, dizzy, or compelled to leave before exploring too deeply. The mansion's architecture itself enhances the sense of dread. Tall, narrow corridors, shadowy corners, and rooms with no apparent exit create a natural labyrinth, disorienting those who venture inside. Broken mirrors reflect shapes that aren't there, while shuttered windows let in streaks of sunlight that cast long, twisting shadows across the walls. Even the staircases, once elegant and polished, are now warped and unstable, adding a physical element of fear that complements the psychological. The DeMello house has also been the setting for local legends and ghostly tales passed down over generations. Children whisper about the mansion's wandering lights or the ghostly silhouette seen at dusk, while adults speak cautiously about the house, never venturing too close. Its stories have become woven into the fabric of Raya village life, a cautionary tale as much as a source of fascination. Some paranormal investigators claim that the mansion is a hotspot for residual hauntings, echoes of strong emotional events replaying through time. The misfortunes, losses, and anguish of the DeMello family may have imprinted themselves onto the structure, creating an energy that continues to interact with the living. This theory helps explain why visitors feel sudden chills, see fleeting figures, or hear voices in otherwise empty rooms. The mansion, abandoned though it may be, seems alive in a sense that transcends the physical. Despite its dangerous, crumbling state, the DeMello house continues to captivate those drawn to the paranormal and the mysterious. Photographers, filmmakers, and urban explorers document its decayed beauty and eerie ambience, preserving images that convey both architectural splendor and haunting desolation. The juxtaposition of historical elegance and spectral reputation gives the mansion a unique place in Goa's folklore, distinguishing it from other abandoned buildings in the region. Walking through the ruins, it is impossible not to feel the weight of history pressing down. The walls seem to whisper stories of wealth, tragedy, and the lingering presence of those who can no longer speak for themselves. Every creak, every flicker of light, every shadow that shifts in the corners of one's vision adds to the sensation that the D.A.I. Mellow House is not truly empty, that its past residents and the emotions that filled their lives continue to inhabit its halls. The D. Mellow House stands today as both a monument to history and a chilling reminder of the unknown. It is a place where architecture, tragedy, and legend intertwine, creating an atmosphere that draws the curious and the brave. To step onto its grounds is to enter a world where the echoes of the past are tangible, where shadows move with purpose, and where the spirit of an abandoned Portuguese-era mansion in Goa still lingers, watching and waiting for those willing to witness its haunting presence. There you have it. 25 haunted houses and haunted places you can actually visit, each with its own spectral legacy, haunted corridors, and restless memories. Some are maintained as museums, inns, or entertainment attractions. Others lie partially open to intrepid explorers. All of them whisper, if you listen closely, of ghosts, sorrow, fear, and, perhaps, hope. If you ever plan to visit one of these places, tread carefully. Respect the spirits you may awaken. Bring a camera, a recorder, and if you dare, a brave heart. But also bring a little humility. These houses have hosted souls long before us, and may linger long after. Thank you, dear watchers, for venturing with me into the darkness tonight. If you enjoyed this journey, please like, subscribe, and ring the bell so that when the shadows shift on future nights, you'll be here with me. Until then, keep your lights low, your mind open, and your footsteps soft. Sleep well, and sweet nightmares.